106 miles to Chicago. We got a full tank of gas, half a pack of cigarettes. It's dark, and we're wearing sunglasses. Hit it.
Good evening, Chicago, and welcome to another Tuesday night edition of Chicago Corner. We're back. We're live. It's been a really busy news week here in Chicago. A lot to talk about, a lot going on. First off, at the top of the show, though, I do want to thank you, our Patreon. Oh, boy, I've got marbles in my mouth. I want to thank our Patreon supporters, Dominic and Kathy, who are our $5 a month Patreon supporters over on our Patreon. You can join us down there at www.patreon.com/Chicago Corner. I also want to mention at the top of the show that we will be live streaming the People's Response Network Mayoral Forum this Sunday the 15th, at 2:30 p.m. from the AIM Church downtown on South Wabash Street, which has a lot of interesting history to it. Dr. King spoke from that chapel. Let me actually get up the. I'm sorry, guys. I'm juggling a lot here, and I'm dealing with the fact that it seems even though I restarted the system, we're dealing with this stuff. There you go. Thank you, Ed. The People's Response Network Chicago Mayoral Forum at the Quinn Chapel AME Church. That will be 2401 South Wabash Avenue in Chicago at 2:30 p.m. Now, we hope people can make the forum. As you can see, they have invited all the candidates. We have Buckner confirmed, Green confirmed, Johnson confirmed, Vallas confirmed. Garcia has not responded. King has not responded. Wilson has not responded, and I'm sorry, Sawyer is actually pending. Now, in a usual turn of events, of course, Mayor Lightfoot won't be there, but she will be sending a representative to speak at a forum for herself to answer questions. I don't know that the forum's going to be asking her representative questions because the mayor has been asked to come there to speak and respond herself, not send a mouthpiece. Apparently, she had a prior commitment. I'm guessing it's fundraising, but what do I know? So if you can't be there in person, though, please tune in to ChicagoCornerTV.com or go to YouTube, where we'll be live streaming the show. We'll actually be starting at 2:15. Kit Cabella will be there with me, and we'll do a little intro at the beginning and then hand it over to the forum moderators who will ask the tough questions that we all want answered. By the way, the Chicago Corner Manifesto, which my colleague Ed Heller has valiantly and faithfully maintained, has been presented to the forum moderators at the People's Response Network. So there may be a few questions that come from our Chicago Corner Manifesto asked to the candidates at that forum. So we're very excited about that. Now, before we introduce our first guest, I want to share a little bit of information on what's been happening in the 34th Ward, which was remapped, I believe earlier this year or it was last year. The 34th Ward used to be located primarily on the south side. They have changed the ward map of the 34th Ward is now part of downtown. It goes through the Halsted corridor. And, actually, I'll bring you on in a moment, Jim. I hit the wrong button. Sorry, everybody. Here's the article from Cranes. And I'm going to share something with you because this relates to the guest we're going to be speaking with tonight. As Chicago aims to revive the loop, a new 34th Ward alderman will play a key role. Whoever is elected in the newly created ward will have an enormous say in the direction of downtown, for better or for worse. Now, this comes from Cranes. Flanked by city officials in September, Mayor Lori Lightfoot unveiled her plan to entice developers to reimagine an aging LaSalle Street as a mixed-use, mixed-income corridor to provide the foot traffic needed to revitalize the Central Loop. But one elected official who will be key to the overhaul and will certainly hear from constituents if it doesn't go as planned won't take office until May of 2023. If it doesn't go as planned, it won't take. If it doesn't go as that's the alderman of the newly created 34th Ward, which was lifted from the far south side and dropped into downtown in the city's new ward map, straddling a one-block stretch of the Chicago River to represent large chunks of the Loop, West Loop, and near West Side. Downtown voters will head to the polls in February to elect a new representative who will not only be involved in the city's vision of a reinvigorated Central Loop, but will be charged with providing stability to the booming area west of the river, where entire neighborhoods were formed over the last 2 decades and continue to grow, in turn sprouting new residents and community groups with sometimes competing visions for the future. The resulting ward is a land of headache and opportunity for the next alderman. While the market will determine if residential conversions take place in the Loop and if the growth in West Loop can be sustained, a new ward provides an ambitious politician a platform to pump the brakes in deference to current residents weary of more construction, or serve as a friend to developers and fill up campaign coffers along the way to protect incumbency or launch a run at higher office. With expensive real estate and the central business district on the line, the campaign for the position was always likely to be costly, but Bill is likely to be costly. Okay, so we're not going to go. Let me jump ahead. I can go into this because we're going to mention the other candidate as well as the one we're interviewing tonight. Bill Conway's appetite for the seat has guaranteed it. The son of a billionaire and one of the founders of Washington-based private equity giant Carlyle Group, Conway is hoping his tough-on-crime message that failed in bid to oust Cook County State's Attorney Kim Foxx in 2020 fares better downtown, where he won the current 42nd ward despite garnering only 31% countywide. Commercial real estate broker Jim Ascot has also formed a campaign committee and loaned himself $12,000 to support the effort. The 34th Ward was shifted from the far south side into downtown to accommodate a boom in growth and comply with the state law that all 50 wards are roughly equal in population. Now, we know that the 34th Ward was quite an area of controversy regarding Alderman Carrie Austin and the charges that were filed against her. Moving the ward across the city out of reach from the current alderman is normally controversial, but became an easy decision because Austin, who's held the seat since 1994, announced she would retire from the city council following an indictment on corruption charges that made re-election no sure thing. So there is a map here of the 34th Ward there. It's an interesting carved out section of the city. I was remarking before the show with my colleague Ed that, it's an odd shape for a ward. It kind of reminds me, going off the beaten path of, if anybody's seen Return of the Jedi, it looks like, where is this here? It looks like the Rebel Alliance medical frigate. Just a joke. I mean, it's interesting. It's like the weird shape of that ward is what came to mind. So anyway, just making light of the situation, how they carved that up. But now, we mentioned the 2 candidates in the ward, Mr. Conway, and our guest of the evening, Mr. Jim Ascot. Now, I want to share some of Mr. Ascot's background with you all before we invite him and my colleague Ed on. So I'm opening up his website here and going to the About. Here we go. Running for the 34th Ward. I don't know what it is with the marbles in my mouth tonight, guys, but here's Mr. Ascot's credentials. He was the chairman of Lane Tech Local School Council. He was the president of the Chicago Association of Realtors, chairman of the 2022 Greek Heritage Parade, chairman State of Illinois Election Day Voter Registration Commission. Jim Ascot immigrated to the United States from Greece when he was 9 years old. He grew up in the city of Chicago and attended public schools, graduating from Lane Tech High School. He earned a Bachelor of Science and Master's in Guidance Counseling, degrees from Bradley University, and holds a doctorate of philosophy degree in psychology from Columbia Pacific University. His career interests thereafter changed, and he applied crisis intervention and management experience to real estate. This will be interesting as we touch on the topic of our vulnerable homeless population in the city. In 1986, he established Ascot Realty Group based in downtown Chicago. His firm works primarily in commercial property development, sales, and leasing, including office, retail, restaurant, and industrial space, and holds a managing broker license in Illinois. This speaks well to the development opportunities in the newly formed ward, as well as the downtown corridor. He's a past president of the Chicago Association of Realtors and has served numerous committees of the Illinois and National Association of Realtors. Mr. Ascot has been awarded the Illinois Association of Realtors Presidential Award for Outstanding Service and a Golden R member of the Realtors Political Action Committee. He was named a Chicago Association of Realtors Realtor of the Year in 1999. Mr. Ascot's got incredible credentials when it comes to development and real estate, and I think managerial experience. That ward is going to be very much a handful to manage as it's been newly formed and relocated. So without further ado, first I'd like to introduce or bring onto the program my co-host and colleague, Mr. Ed Heller.
Hello, everybody.
And the guest of the hour, Mr. Jim Ascot.
Hello, everyone.
Ed, thank you for joining us, Jim.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I didn't mean to be too verbose at the top of the show, but there was a lot of stuff to cover in regards to what the 34th Ward is about and your interest in serving the people in that ward and your vision for what you see that newly formed ward becoming.
Yeah, correct. I think that it is a handful of not only my own bio, but the ward itself. I think it's a hub of everything. We're in the middle of a great city with the Loop and the near West Loop, the communities that it has downtown as well as in the West Loop. So we have a residential component on all sides as well as the business community. For me, I represented a lot of the business aspect in the ward over my 20 years of living in the ward and working in it as well. So the experience is there regarding the process of development, the process of growth in retail, office, that type of experience. And I think that a small personal story, when they formed this ward, and of course I was finding this great dissatisfaction in the way the city was moving in regards to executing administrative policies, everything, especially since the taxes with the assessor came through this year, it was just unbearable. I had to step up. And also because it was Greektown, that's a soft spot for me being the chairman of the Greek parade on Halsted Street. But when I first came to this country back in the late 50s, we lived in Little Italy above this Mayoral meat store that had sold lamb. So we grew up in that neighborhood. And once University of Illinois expanded their whole campus, they bought out all that area, and then we moved to the north side. But it's good to go back and see that now as an adult and someone who has been around for a while. But it is an exciting ward, and it is going to play a big factor in how it develops, especially in the Loop. There's so many properties that are being looked at right now to be able to reposition into residential, as the mayor wants to try to accomplish. Obviously, it would be a great boom, especially since the Google building, the former Thompson building, is going to be a place where probably 5,000 or more people will be working, all IT people. And why Fulton has been so successful is because with Google being there now, people want to live and work close by so they can walk to work. I think that will be the same kind of trend that will happen for the Thompson building once that's put together in the next couple of years. So, go ahead, Jerry.
I was going to say, it'll be interesting because one thing that we discovered coming out of the pandemic was that a lot of people can work from home. And a lot of people, I don't know that they're resistant to like dealing with commutes and coming back into the city, but when we talk about more businesses moving into the city, like that tech hub with Google at the Thompson Center, they're definitely going to need people close by, I'm sure, especially to staff and run things in that building. One of the things that is interesting, and I come to this with an uneducated real estate background, but I see so much high-rise development going up in the Loop, South Loop. Unfortunately, there is some gentrification that comes with that. And I look at these buildings and, they always say, well, we're going to provide 30% affordable housing in these buildings. And I'm like, first of all, I understand people need to make money, but it's like, shouldn't all housing be affordable? And it's like, I know that those new high rises have to cost a lot of money. And I sometimes wonder, are a lot of these new developments that are going up sitting empty because people can't afford to live downtown? I guess maybe if you can provide some perspective on that, because downtown needs to be redeveloped and needs to be affordable for people to live and work there. Absolutely. And one of the platforms, or one of the issues in your platform, what I'm very happy to see you want to focus on, is the homelessness crisis, because affordable housing all throughout the city, not just downtown in the Loop, is a big issue. And there are so many people homeless, so many vulnerable homeless people down in the city. How do you see some of the redevelopment or some of the ideas that you bring to the table from your experience in real estate and housing to be able to address how we can make more housing affordable, especially in those areas downtown?
Well,
I know there's no easy answer to that, but I mean, the homeless crisis is a big issue, and it is one of your key issues on your website.
Right. I agree. The point with the homelessness, we see it in all our neighborhoods throughout the city, especially in the Loop as well, because we have the underground, the Wacker Drive, we have under the bridges, and people are forced, to find places where they can, save themselves from the environment, the weather conditions. And I have to at least say something regarding to the person that's been able to give the strong tents for some of these orange tents that you see out there. Yeah. He had to step up and try to help, even in a small way, but it was a big way for him, spending a couple $100 per tent on his own money. So, I got to congratulate him that he stepped up. But that's something that the city should have been handling, for a long time.
Civic responsibility.
Absolutely. There's been budgets regarding the dollars that were for last year's budget. It was over $100 million. This year's budget is over $200 million. Where is that money going to go? How is it going to be spent? And I think that that's something that we need to have some transparency and accountability on that. I met with Children and Family Services, try to step up and say, listen, can I help? My experience as a broker, as someone who understands the city and properties, can I help? Be able to acquire some of these old hotels that are being going to be shuttered. Why can't we buy those and use them as a facility for giving a room to every homeless person that's available, and then have some services that go with it? You can't just. The first step is getting into a home. Safety first, and then you supply the services. Some, a lot of cases are mental health issues, which I've got a lot of experience in when I used to be at the emergency room at Loretto Hospital, dealing with all types of cases dealing with mental health. And they also drug addiction. We have that. Fentanyl opiate addiction has been tremendous. We've lost 2,000 people last year in opiate deaths, and it's coming to be the same for this year, the 22 as well. So we're not dealing with it, at least in my point of view, not the right way. There's been a settlement with the fentanyl and opiate use, and so we will have more money coming in for the purposes of dealing with it. But I think we're kind of stuck with certain mentality about how to deal with drug abuse. When people want to go to a shelter, they're homeless, shelter or something else, there's restrictions. You can't come in if you're a drug addict. Well, what happens to them? It doesn't make sense. The first is the safe position of finding a place to stay. And then you can deal with the issues of mental health and addiction. That's what I think is important to try to put together. And there's a lot of opportunities with this for essential housing. All this is essential housing for the homeless, as well as for the affordable aspect of it. This is a requirement. This is what we need to have for everybody. There's over 60,000 people that are homeless, not living on the street. They're talking about maybe 1,400 people living on the street, 5,000 in shelters. The others are living in somebody's couch or in somebody's basement, and that is unacceptable. So I think the city has to relook at their policies, and I want to be part of that solution to be able to bring in. We have organizations that deal with homelessness and affordable housing. They need to be engaged and brought into the circle so we can deal with it. We've been building affordable housing. The one project that I thought was very good and took a long time to put together was in Logan Square on Kedzie and Milwaukee. It was 100 units there that they did for affordable housing. Perfect location, easy access to transportation, and a safety place to live. So we can do that throughout.
Jim, this is so refreshing to hear. Ed, do any of these proposals Jim shares sound familiar?
Yeah, a few of them do, Jerry. I mean, I don't want to take credit for all the stuff that we put into the Chicago Corner Manifesto, because a lot of it came from our viewers and a lot of it came from other people that I've heard and read about. But yeah, we talk about we need to end homelessness in Chicago.
But primarily, too, the idea of we have so much vacant space around the city. When we were talking shows back about Lightfoot wanting to redevelop the LaSalle Street corridor, I'm like, thank God they're going to hopefully keep those old buildings there. But if they're going to renovate them to provide housing to people, there's so much space there to house homeless people. You can home mental care facilities in those same locations, and an office so that you can provide employment opportunities. If you're going to stay in this big structure that's vacant, you're going to not renovate it, but retrofit it or adjust it to serve homeless population or people like single residency occupancy. There's so much more you can do with that space and provide like a hub, a community for those people so that they have the opportunities that they don't have because they've been abandoned. Another thing too, Jim, that's crazy is how the Chicago Housing Authority has been giving away public land to corporations. They just gave away a huge parcel of land or brokered some kind of a deal with the Chicago Fire so that they could have a training facility. They did it to Target back in the site where the old Cabrini Green projects were. It blows my mind that the CHA is able to get away with this, giving away housing that was set aside to be affordable for those who were displaced and promised they would be able to do that. 12 years have passed.
Right. I was going to say, look at how long, that's been vacant and idle. And I think that, we're doing all the wrong things on this. We're putting impediments. Developers can be people that obviously money is a concern, but they're also engaged and want to be supportive and do essential housing as well. We have opportunities where not only, these developers put in money into the community, into the neighborhood fund, and as well as other payments that they make. And that money should be used to do essential housing, I want to call it, not affordable, essential housing, so people can do something. Now, there's companies that do prefab housing. They can be put together with $35,000. You can create a home. And let's buy some of this. We have land all over the city that we can put these properties together and move people in it. There's no reason why we can't operate that way. It doesn't seem that there seems to be some kind of breakdown in how the administration works.
They don't prioritize it, Jim. It's not a priority. Refurbished is the word that I was talking about. All the vacant buildings can be refurbished at probably a much more affordable level than absolute new construction, because there are a lot of decent buildings all across the city that are vacant, not being used. So if they could be refurbished,
it could be. It is more expensive because of the plumbing and bathrooms and all in the kitchens. All that requires additional dollars to reconvert some of those spaces. And sometimes the floor plans are so large, you have to have windows so that you have light coming in. So that there's some of the buildings won't work, but the ones with smaller floor plates can work. I mean, people got to work through that process. And I know they talked about maybe using TIF money to help some of the developers defray some of those costs, because the ARO at 30%, again, changes the dynamic of the ability for a developer to make it work. So, but there's other ways to work through this process. And there is an interest from developers to convert some of these buildings. So we just have to open it up and bring more collaboration into the system. And make it easier and smoother to operate. Sometimes you get caught up in, people complain, I can't get a permit through the city for the development. It takes me years. Well, that doesn't help anybody. So there's a process. And I think that that's what gives me at least the perspective of stepping into this position and helping. For me, I don't want to be anything else. This is the alderman for me. That's it. I'm not looking to be a mayor. I'm not looking to be anything else. This is it. This is going to be my full-time job. And try to create opportunities for everyone in the ward, the people that live downtown, as well as the businesses that are downtown. They need support right now. Obviously, as you mentioned, we're not having everybody come downtown to work. And that's because there's some of it is fear of being on the transportation and the L's where there's crime and all those type of things that happen. People and they're not even taken care of. So, we need to have more, we can talk about policing later, but those are some of the solutions we have to look at to make people comfortable coming back downtown, to be vibrant. Our streets and our Michigan Avenue, to people have to come in and see all the products and everything else that's there, do the shopping and spend some money. Everybody, but we have to lift everybody up. It's not just for the wealthy and the well-to-do; it's everyone. We can't leave anyone behind, and that takes investment in neighborhoods that need to have investment, with housing, with new retail that would move in after housing is built. We have to work at it, from all angles. And people, I think, want to participate and help. Our ward, our 34th ward is an exciting ward. It has so many different components in it that, the developers are continuing to build, especially on the Fulton portion of it. And this ward was created by taking a little bit of Burnett's ward, a little bit of Riley's ward, a little bit of Irwin's, and a little bit of Lopez. And they created this ward. And everybody took their little cutouts that they wanted to keep. And that's why the odd shapes in the ward, but it's still
we noticed.
yeah, there it is. But it's
wow.
Great. We have the river. We have all the way going down to Roosevelt Road. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities here for great living and business.
Well, the thing too that Jim that impresses me about your candidacy and interest, commitment to getting in the races, you do have your real estate background clearly provides a great strength in figuring out how to develop this new ward more equitably for the residents there as well as businesses. It's
right.
From my perspective, you mentioned the issue of people coming into the city. A lot of their resolve to come into the city has a lot to do with riding public transportation and public safety, which is a nice transition into our one of your other let's go. I'm sorry, got to bring up my screen here. One of your other big issues, which is public safety. So do you want to speak a little bit to that? Yes. It's posted on your website. We also have Jim's website linked in the show notes below, everybody, as we always do every week, so you can read more about Jim as well as his the issues on his website. But talk about what your vision is for public safety in this new ward to encourage people to come back in as this area is redeveloped.
As I was out and talking to the constituents of the 34th ward, that is their main concern, is public safety and crime. And I think that it's not only our ward, the 34th ward, it's throughout the city that we see a variety of carjackings and burglaries and shootings. But when I've been to CAP meetings and talked to the police officers and the district commanders there, one thing that I noticed, they would actually say, well, the crime is being reduced. And I said, does it make any correlation that it's being reduced because there's been more visibility with the police on these sites? And I almost got a yes. So it's obvious to me that we need more police on site. Foot patrols, I think, are important. We need to get people to create that trust to the police officers and build them into the community. So I think that that's an important aspect of it, to be able to allocate, not only on the trains, which I think are critical because we've seen some terrible things that have happened and people being beaten up and robbed. So we need to have a presence on the trains as well as being available in buses as well. That I think will make a big difference. And we want to see them walking the beats. I remember on Halsted Street, we had a police officer there who was working the beat from Randolph all the way to Randolph. From Van Buren all the way to Randolph, and then down the retails of Madison and Randolph Street. And we knew his name because he was there. We see him, every day mostly, and that was a safety issue. He knew us, and that made a difference. And I think that's what we need to go to, and we need to be able to obviously that we're down almost 2,000 officers.
I was about to point that out. As I understand that they've had a very tough time recruiting officers, despite the fact 70% of 2021's COVID federal relief funds went to police overtime.
Right. And
we've also got the issue that taxpayers are paying out enormous amounts of money on police settlements. It's kind of a careful area I want to tread into here because we're very critical of the police department here based on a lot of the bad things that we see. That doesn't mean we're against law enforcement. We want law enforcement to aspire to what we expect law enforcement to be. But when we see the Fraternal Order of Police, there seems to be an attitude, Jim, and maybe this is something that the city council can work more at, along with aldermen like yourself coming in. There seems to be a culture in the police department, it's them against us. And maybe not us so much, but the communities that they're assigned to police in. One of the issues that we've talked about here is, why would it be so difficult to make it a requirement that police officers in each community that they police need to reside in that neighborhood? Why can't you allocate those? Because then they're not looking at the people they're policing as a potential enemy or threat to their lives. They're looking at them as, this is my neighbor. We know each other. We're invested here to do the same thing, to partner together and bridge this gap to make the community safer. I wish that there would be some kind of a mandate set forth or some kind of proposal put forth that says that police should live in the communities that they police. Law enforcement works, because that helps build that trust, along with the CAPS meetings and the neighborhood being involved in neighborhood policing as well.
We have to work toward that, to build that trust, so that, because the police are very important to us, all of us, and we respect their service and thank them for it, because they're our first responders. But there is some issues that happen that obviously, as you mentioned, we have to settle cases because of overreach. And I think that can be dealt with in the recruitment and training of police officers. We should continue training throughout the course. As a realtor, every 2 years, I take ethics courses and my professional career. Why can't we do the same for police officers as well? To allocate time for them to be able to go through another training, another education process. I think that's important.
And provide more mental health support, because we're also hearing that a lot, not only are our citizens across the city dealing with no access to mental health, but I believe that the amount of mental health caseworkers in the police department, it's obscene. There aren't enough there to help police officers.
We need that not only for the police officers, we need it for our schools, for our kids as well. When I was at the hospital and working in the emergency room, at that time, they cut out the budgets. In 1980s, with Ronald Reagan cutting back, and we lost a lot of outpatient clinics. I didn't know where to recommend any of the patients other than to commit them to Reed or Madden or in one of these institutions. They were there for 48 hours, then released, and once they ran out of medications, they were back on this kind of constant wheel, and I would be seeing them again. And that's where it was so frustrating. I just didn't want to do that anymore. But we need mental health services, not only for the police, but we need them for schools, so that there's a counselor there that can relate to helping someone identify a problem and bring it forward and help. Otherwise, we're let people function on their own without any direction, without any help. Those that need it should be able to have it, and we need to expand it. We closed the mental health clinics when Ron was mayor.
Yeah,
thank you very much. But we need to open them up again, and I haven't seen a process where we're opening them. Even to the level of some of the schools that were closed. Okay, we lost those schools, but they stand closed and shuttered. Why can't we make those community operations? There's a gym there. Why can we create a mental health area for people to be able to bring in a family member, can bring in somebody for counseling, and then have activities later for the kids, using the facility. Those are the kind of things that are important to build that trust and that we care in the community. And then we can incentivize police and firefighters and teachers to live in the areas where they teach and work. You know what the safest city or the safest neighborhood is in Chicago?
I'm guessing somewhere in the Gold Coast.
Norwood.
Which neighborhood?
Norwood, at the edge of the
Norwood.
city.
Well, that's a police community.
Hello.
Yeah, the police. Yeah, most of Chicago's police department live in Norwood Park.
Well, that's the farthest outskirts of the city.
Right.
But it's safe because everyone there is in the community is a police officer or fireman. And I think, why can't we recreate that? We need to build that trust with the FOP and work with them as well. I think it's important to work with everyone, no matter what their ideological ideation is. It doesn't matter. We're all Chicagoans. We all want the best for our city, and we want to make it that way. And for me, I want to create that collaboration between the aldermen that are going to be serving, and we're going to have 15 new ones, that, that some dropped out because they just couldn't stand it anymore. The divisiveness that's happened in the last 4 years. And so, we'll have a chance to have new people coming in with new ideas, and we can collaborate together to make the best for the city. It shouldn't be about, being there to get a title, alderman, or move to another position. It's about doing the work required to make it work for all of us in the city and our ward.
We're proud of the fact that we're a sanctuary city, and we're trying to help displaced migrants that are bused here or that end up here, fleeing situations in their countries. Miraculously, though, Lightfoot was able to come up with, I think, $25 million out of nowhere to refurbish a South Side school to house the migrants. Now, that's great that she did that for them, but we have to ask ourselves, why aren't the same efforts being put forth for our vulnerable homeless community? Yes. Or to refurbish these vacant city buildings that are being repurposed for affordable housing? And to the mental health issue too, this is a cyclical problem. If you don't provide mental health, not only for the police, but for children, so many kids in the city are living in households where under parents who suffered the same kind of abuses in generations prior. So when people talk about, kids have a choice, they might need mental health, but they decide to engage in crime, that's a choice. It's like, if you grow up in a household systemically, cyclically, generation to generation, you don't have parents who knew better because their parents abused them. You need to start investing in the neighborhoods. You need to start investing in mental health services. You need to start reaching out to the youth in the community and doing everything you can to protect, because there is much of a vulnerable population, as we talk about, as the homeless population here. The money's not going where it has to go. And, when we see so much money being given to the police department, crime isn't going down without that overfunding. So I think that it was a really stupid phrase to use the expression defund the police. It's reallocate resources, because I'm telling you, Jim, as a constituent to a potential alderperson who's going to hopefully win in your ward and be able to bring these issues to city council. And I just completely lost my train of thought with where I was going with that.
I think what you were mentioning is there is a pilot program that was created called CARES. And that has an officer, an MT, and a mental health person going out to a call.
Yes. I know what I'm sorry. I know what I was going to say to you. Reallocating all the money that's going to the police department, reallocate some of those funds to provide the mental health services for the kids, to reinvest in the communities, because all the money that's going into the police department, it's not reducing crime. When you're basically taking funds that could be going into the neighborhoods, you're not striking out at the root source of what ends up being crime, and that's helping people in the community. That's where I was going with that. Right. So I think that, I'm hoping this is an issue we bring up with a lot of the candidates who come on. When we're not asking to defund the police. We're asking for a rational reallocation of funds to address the areas that aren't being funded, that could hopefully be more preventative measures than reactive measures with just a law enforcement response.
It's across the board at every level that we need to look at the budget. In 2019, Rom's last budget for the coming year was $10.7 billion. This year, at 2023, the budget is $16.7 billion. What happened in these 4 years to be $1 billion a year increase? $6 billion. Where is that?
Let me interrupt. Well, Rom, he takes responsibility, Jim.
I take responsibility for what happened because it happened on my watch.
Good clip.
He failed upward to the ambassadorship of Japan, is what.
Right. Those are the risks you take when you go to Japan.
Chair. Yeah. The mayor has that responsibility to oversee all of it, but with transparency and debate on the council floor. There shouldn't be like, I just got this and I have to vote on it today. Let's review it. Can we debate issues? Can we see where we allocate money? Commissioners come in, they say, here's my budget for the year. Okay. What happened last year? How did you deploy this money? Were you successful in the programs that you were working on? Before we allocate new monies, we want to know how it happened.
Yeah, where'd all the other money go?
That is so critical to be able to do that. And I think that we'll find common ground to be able to ask the questions, not in a very negative way, but rather, we are all in charge of representing 2 million citizens in this city. And yes, I'm going to be responsible and point out the needs of my ward, but we're all connected. As I mentioned before, this ward is a hub for the whole city of people traveling on the highway, which is the Kennedy that comes through, part of the Eisenhower. We have the Union Station, we have the river, we have downtown Michigan Avenue. It's a phenomenal ward. And the people that I've seen in the West Loop are young professionals that are with carriages with their babies and dogs. That's the community that's healthy and vibrant, and we want to make sure we support that.
Ed, I don't want to filibuster all the questioning. I'm sure you might have some thoughts that you want to share with Jim.
It's fine. I mean, no, it was not. It was nice to hear your perspective on public safety and law enforcement. I was in the manifesto what we call the reallocation of funds to community support systems, because that's really what we're trying to do. Is we're trying to support communities, and we're trying to make sure that that support is not focused only on police response, because you don't take a hammer and use that and then consider every problem a nail, right? You gotta have the different solutions, and so law enforcement, they have a handful of things that they're good at, let them focus on that. But that doesn't mean that they need the billions of dollars in budget that they currently have. We should reallocate that to community support systems that will better help the city.
And Jim also mentioned the fact that they are putting mental health response specialists. They started that, I think, about a year ago.
Yeah, it's a pilot program that should be continued and enlarged for sure. And I think the budget for the police grew another $200 million from I think a billion. I want to say $1.6 billion to $1.9 billion. I'm not sure on that, but I know that went up. So, but how is it being spent? What is it? I mean, obviously, there's maintenance of the facilities. There's maintenance of the vehicles. There's a whole bunch of things, but we don't know how it's allocated. Are we spending it correctly? Can we do better within the budgets? And can we again bring in more of? I think if that care program system is going to be something that's going to be worthwhile for us to expand. I talked to some of the people that are instituted, and they feel good about it. It's good to have an extra person that's there to intervene in a whole different way, in a mental health way. And sometimes it saves an incident. It's simple. Sometimes you have to talk about it. One experience that I had when I was at Loretto and working, the police brought in somebody who seemed agitated, and so they called me in to evaluate it. Is it something that we need to put this guy in jail, or what is it that we can do? They left it to me to make a decision. This person was sitting in the emergency room, very, very still, very quiet, but I could see that it was a tense situation for him, whatever the ideation was. So I slowly, approached him so he didn't feel threatened. And I said, "What's going on?" He says, "I'm mad. I think I'm going to explode." I said, "Well, you want to let me give you a solution of what we can do?" And he kind of nodded. And I said, "Listen, this is what I want to do. I want to take you in one of the cots in the emergency room, and I'm going to let you lie down on it, but I'm going to strap you in so you don't have to worry about it." Somehow that worked. We were able to walk him over there. We strapped him in, and he calmed down. I was able to give him I had the MD give him a sedative, and it calmed down. It was something then we could begin to talk and try to issue what's the best recommendation for that person. So, I mean, you have to step into it with care, not with strength and, fear, but it's rather treat the person as a human being and see where you can do to intervene and help. And I think that's something that we should look at for the whole process of how we deal with everything that we do. It's not, we deal with so many issues. The city is going to be, could be in trouble coming up once the COVID funds are done. How do we sustain, that kind of budget? And how do we deal with the property taxes that are causing people to think about leaving because it's just been outrageous? These are things that I think are going to be important. That are important to be debated with the full council and understanding where we're going. These ego petty things, we have to put them in their place, but we have to deal with the bigger picture as well. And I think that that's where I want to be able to be successful in as the alderman of the 34th ward.
We like to integrate questions from our viewers in the live chat. We have Kathy Powers asks, and this is an issue too we've talked about. What do you feel? I'm sorry, not that one. Is Mr. Ascot for reversing? Well, it's related. Is Mr. Ascot for reversing privatization that we see in the city and how these deals are given out? And I think that that's why there is no accountability for where the funds are going because of all the privatization that's being
right.
integrated.
Yeah, I think that what do we need the city for if we're going to privatize things? I think it's important that we deal with our issues. The privatizing the parking system, whoever made that deal,
that was Daley, and that money was gone in 2 years. A year,
Yeah.
2 years. So they
got all their money back in 5 years, and now we've got 70 years left. And again, I don't know if how we benefit from it. Are we getting a percentage? All these deals.
No, I don't think we are. No, we're not getting any percentage.
Rahm Emanuel said he was going to undo that deal, and he didn't.
No, he fled. He had to flee office because covering up the Laquan McDonald execution.
Well, he fell into that one, unfortunately, and that was his finish. But I have to give him some credit regarding what he was able to bring into business-wise into the city. That I think was his best ability because he was a deal maker. Beyond that, we can talk, but nevertheless, this is a very difficult job being mayor of the city, and there's so many components to it. But it doesn't work if you're not sharing, if you're not transparent, and talk about how we can best serve the people, and with care and with proper respect with every aspect of it. The way we're short on everybody. From cab, not cab, but bus drivers to police people that need to be stepping up and helping. We have to make it a place where we respect these jobs. So
we have a friend of the show and Chicago police officer Nimesh Patel in the chat, and Nimesh shares, "I'm enjoying your talk on public safety. Community safety is a community concern, and we need to have an expansive view of what public safety means." He also adds, universal pre-kindergarten, lighted streets, prison rehabilitation, investing in public health are all tied to public safety. Agreed?
You are correct. All of that is required and needed. We have prison systems. All we do is basically warehouse people. That can we do education? Can we do work training? Can we help them be able to have a skill before they leave and serve their sentence? All those are important. Pre-kindergarten is critical. I'm a grandfather, and I have one little girl in pre-kindergarten, preschool, and that's terrific. She's beginning to learn, beginning to have an experience with other things around her, and those things should be supplied. We're in public school, and thank God that we can offer that. But all these are services that are important to bring everybody up, so that enjoy life, the quality of life. And definitely, I agree that these are the things that we need to focus on.
So I want to tell our viewers, how long have we known each other, Jim? Maybe about 10 years?
More than that, Jerry, I think. But yeah, so definitely over 10.
I hope everybody can hear Jim's passion and his commitment to his candidacy here, because we might not all agree on reallocating police funds or how things are done, but I know and I can attest that Jim is a man of integrity and his heart is in this, which is why I was very happy when he reached out and asked if he could come on the show. And I'm like, we're always looking for guests. And of course, Jim, sadly, I didn't know you were running. So I'm glad it was brought to my attention you were running so we could have you on to talk about these important issues.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I think it's important to step into this. People ask me, why are you doing it? So, well, I've always been someone that's committed to joining organizations like Elaine Tech High School, for instance. I went there for my reunion, my 20th reunion, and they kind of recruited me to be in the alumni. So I stayed in the alumni, and then when the local school councils were created in 1989, Mayor Daley appointed me as a community representative there because I was so involved in the Lane Tech Alumni Association, and I stayed there for 10 years. My son Dennis came there, and when he graduated, the highlight of all this, having my parents there at the time, and Dennis was secretary of his class, and they had me as the commencement speaker. You can't ask for better than that. So you volunteer, you give all you can, and it does come back to you as well. So these are the kind of things that I've always been doing in all the organizations that I belong to. I usually wind up as a leadership position, but I contribute back as much as I can because I love it.
Well, you have a dedication to public service, clearly.
Yes.
And I think that, as we spoke earlier in the interview, that your background in real estate is going to be crucial in figuring out how can a lot of these goals be met without leaning into what we see all the time with the privatization and really focusing on what's also going to be best for your constituents, residents, and citizens in that ward, as well as across the city. Let's speak quickly also. One of your campaign ward issues is infrastructure. Chicago's falling apart. It's crumbling. I know that Ed's going to chime in on the potholes, but why don't you share some of?
Oh, now I don't need to.
Let me read quickly from your list of issues. The city is set to receive $18 billion in federal funds, in addition to $45 billion in state money. The city council should set the agenda for infrastructure development and improvements with oversight and establish completion dates for each project. This picture that's on your website, I see all over the north side. It's not just down in the 34th ward. I go under these bridges and literally I'm seeing like steel bars with rivets holding crumbling concrete pylons together. And the Belmont overpass, Jim, I don't know if you've seen this. It's already fallen apart. That's a brand new construction. It's already falling apart. People walking underneath it. There's like chips coming off of that overpass there. So, what are some of your vision for improving the infrastructure in the city?
Well,
before you start though, Jim, can I just recommend that if you do get elected, that you make sure that the city no longer uses Quaker oats for construction projects?
Yeah, right. For the last maybe 6 months, I know. This is sometimes you wonder what oversight there is. The departments that hand out the contracts for this, there's no, timelines. When can we finish this? Any penalties if we don't? Like we do when we do other deals out there in the world. But the city doesn't seem to put any budget on it. It was in the paper today. The traffic that's caused from construction, which is happening all the time, with no thought of traffic concerns. They block off this, for instance, they had Adams Street and Jackson Street bridges over the expressway closed at the same time. What? Or they do a construction site somewhere in the streets in the inner city, and they block off roads, and it's impossible to go through.
Well, the old joke, Jim, 2 seasons in Chicago, construction in winter.
In winter, of course.
In summer, everything's being done and look, the Jane Byrne, what do they call it? The overpass, or the Jane Byrne interchange. That took longer to complete than we were in World War II.
I think so. I think that's
a fact. It took longer than we were in World War II. What is it? It's just like one interchange project in the downtown area to ramps and crazy.
And it's still not finished yet.
No, it's still not
there. We're getting there.
In fact, I was on it today on my way home from work, and they still need to redo the roads on a lot of this thing, and people are still getting used to it, like having the number of lanes it has. So you're still going to have that big traffic rush hour now that more people are driving again.
Yeah.
Well, we hopefully we can manage the public transportation so that it's more comfortable and more safe and more clean. Yeah, that's another part that we didn't break on. Besides the safety,
let's talk about it. Let's go into it, please.
Yeah, I think as the train comes back into the station, they should have a crew that cleans it all up and ready to go again. Why not? This is part of
It creates jobs. It creates jobs.
Well, it does. And we need to create those jobs to do that, because people will feel comfortable. They're coming into a clean environment, that there's a police on, there for safety's perspective, and everybody's comfortable. They can be on their, on their iPads and everything else, without worrying somebody come up and grab it in from them. So that will create more ridership. And then, we should do some incentives for kids that are going to school. They should have a discount. Seniors have a discount. We should help. We should help that. And I think right now they're talking about they're going to be a deficit budget that they will run into in the next couple of years, over $700 million. Hello, how are we going to deal with that? We have to look at all the possibilities. We have to make transitions for sustainability. These buses should be electric, and we should only get any new orders should be electric, so that we begin to also consider climate change. we have to look at all those possibilities at the same time. And so the infrastructure, of course, money that's allocated, I will do my best to bring it to the ward as well as other places where it needed the most. But we need to be able to look at that and how to allocate funds and at least put in certain requirements that people, the contractors, will abide by. We spent, I think, almost, I want to say $2 billion. I could fact check this one, of people in traffic that they lost in gas time and money and time. That's a lot to put on people because it wasn't organized well.
I haven't ridden public transportation for a long time because I have a car. But are there transit police in Chicago? Because I know there are in New York. Does the CTA have any kind of a transit police infrastructure? Or is it just relying on some security and Chicago police?
They were going to put some allocate some money into a private firm with dogs, but I think that's not that's not what we need. We use that money instead of hiring a private company with dogs. Let's put some officers on there. I mean, and they could be special officers, the CTA officers that are allocated to working in the system, making sure that there's protection at every possibility. That will only deter people from causing any crime. Otherwise, we're going to continue with this. But we need to look at the total budgets and all this.
Well, here's a big elephant in the room that Kathy brings up that we brought up too. I have to apply for PACE. That's going to cost me. It should be free. I've fallen off buses 3 times this year. What are the possibilities? Let's address this. Is there a possible way to make public transportation in the city of Chicago free? To basically reduce traffic and congestion, safe public transportation, so that people like Kathy, she's a senior, and she has a disability, but this should be for all people to be able to ride public transportation as as a public utility, a public service. What? Any thoughts on that?
It's a public use, and it should be as reasonable as possible. But I think we need to look at how it functions. Right now, the RTA is the overall organization that looks at CTA and Metra. And we need to look at, how that functions and where those dollars come from. And, we need to reinvest in our rail systems. There's always been a backlog of being stuck in Chicago when you come in with freight trains. And those companies should invest in abilities to be able to, move throughout the city without being stuck here for several days. So there's a lot of things that we need to look at. Even on the level of environment, Lake Michigan is being polluted by other states like Indiana. And we have money that came in that needs to look at that. We have to stop, that pollution. This is our drinking water.
And what about the lead in the water?
There's so many things, Jerry.
The UK Guardian across the ocean reported on the extraordinary levels of lead in our drinking water.
Yeah.
The Sun-Times didn't report on it. The Tribune didn't report on it. It took a news organization on the other side of the world to point to what's going on here, because nobody's paying attention. Nobody wants to put attention on the fact that this is a pressing issue that we have among some of the highest lead levels in our drinking water as other cities across the nation.
Well, besides the lead issue, there's also some of the chemicals that are flowing through that are not being dissolved totally. They say, well, they're very low. Well, low is not good enough. It shouldn't be any. And now they were talking about, because we're so lax in getting these lead pipes moving up, there was only 200 pipes that were removed out of 39,000.
Yeah.
Come on. And there's money for it. And we haven't been able to put it together.
Chicago's not broke. Have you heard of Tom Tresser's book, Chicago's Not Broke?
No.
I think, what we need to do, Ed? We need to do a fundraiser here at Chicago Corner to buy a copy of Tom Tresser's book, Chicago is Not Broke. He's an economics specialist, and distribute it to every alderperson and city council, so that when we're told we don't have money for this, it's like, yeah, you do, because the work's been done on where to find it and how to use it.
Right.
It's really good reading, Jim. I mean, it's available as an audiobook. It's available online. It's been around for several years. Thomas Tresser is an economist here in Chicago who has spoken much on the issue of the fact that Chicago's not broke. No. There's no will to prioritize what needs to be done for the people.
We're a vibrant city. We're not going to be Detroit, but Detroit is even coming back around with the investment that was made there. We had a billionaire that went in there and started investing, and that made the difference. We have a lot of things going on for us here. The great lakefront, great theater, great restaurants, great, it doesn't stop. And I think that's where you have to come from, the place of pride. We have sports teams here. Obviously, not always winning, but it doesn't matter. We have sports teams here, and we have all these things that we can brag about. But we need to all work together. We're all in the same boat. We just need to row the same way, and I think that will make a big difference. That we care about our city, we care about each other, and that will help. And if we invest in places that need it the most, it will only help the overall city, so that everybody knows that we care about everyone. I know it's kind of optimistic or maybe a little too.
It's not, Jim. I think the thing is that we're also bitter and cynical from the same old status quo. Right. When we talk, you're being Pollyanna about this, you're being too idealistic. We have to continue to be idealistic and strive towards that idealism and changing things, because if we all just say, it's never going to change if we just roll over and accept it.
Right.
I mean,
exactly.
Thankfully, there are candidates like yourself who are as passionate about this, along with a lot of other candidates that we're seeing who are going to be entering this electoral race this year. Ed has something to share. Go ahead. I saw that you had that.
Well, and it's also good to talk about what's possible. And for a lot of people, they don't understand because everybody says that the city's broke, and it isn't. Right. It's just that the funds that they take in with TIF funds and all the other revenue sources that we do or do not know about, the city's got plenty of money. It's where they're allocating it. It's where they're choosing to spend it. And so what we would like for alder people and the next mayor to do is to look into those things and find out, where are we wasting money? Why are we prioritizing things like a casino?
We didn't talk about
that. Or a NASCAR race.
Yeah.
Instead of making sure that communities have the support systems that they need to thrive to prevent crime from happening.
Did somebody say NASCAR race? Gentlemen, start your engines.
I think that was definitely something that was totally not needed, especially since at the same time we were having all these young kids doing the drag racing on the street for a circle, and now we're bringing NASCAR in. Sure. Why don't we do this? It is bizarre, and I think that was done very quickly by the mayor. No consideration. Alderman didn't have any input on it. I mean, Riley was very upset at the fact that that's part of his ward. And the same thing with the casino. It seemed that we just rubber stamped it and gone on, and it's going to affect the 34th ward. All that traffic is coming right next to us.
I wanted to ask you, because when you talk about crime and safety, that's going to be bringing a lot of safety issues into the ward. Yeah. Not only is it going to clog up the streets and congest traffic, but you're going to be introducing an element into that area that's not going to make things safer. And Chicago's not Vegas. So, I mean, go ahead. Right. I want Ed to speak, and then I want to maybe we can close this out with my question about casino talk. But Ed, go ahead.
It's turns 10 and 11 that are going to be hitting the 34th ward, which would be something you'll have to deal with potentially.
Yeah, exactly. For me, the best site was the Lakeside Center over by McCormick Place. That building is hardly used. It needs $50 million just to bring it back to some level of condition. And why? And they could have opened that up immediately. The money was there. I mean, Bally would have been able to do that. Obviously, they did a deal that they did was to be able to have another team of people buying the land and they lease it back. I mean, all those can be done. But we didn't.
Deal.
Yeah, the art of the deal is right, but that art of the deal is it's not gonna help the community, especially with the kind of population that's gonna be around it. It'll be insane.
I said it was an insider deal. There was probably a lot of quid pro quo back and forth with Bally's and people that may be, I don't know, donating to Lori's reelection fund. And we were looking at Illinois Sunshine to see who are the developers and who was potentially giving money to the mayor's reelection fund. And I think that we made some connections there. But it's all inside deal.
It was $42 million that was handed over, and I don't know if that went into pension funds or what, but there was $42 million. It was also when the company came in and bought into the Indiana Skyway, there was a transaction there that $25 million came into city coffers from the transfer tax that came from that. What happened to that money? I mean, how are we using all this? There's money coming in from every place, from tickets, from property taxes, from every angle, and how are we working with it? These are the things that I need to, that we will need to look at, and I will look at. And I think
Recommended reading.
Book. Chicago is not broke. So
Jim, is there any, I guess we kind of covered the thoughts about the casino. I mean, I personally don't think we need a casino, no matter how much money it's going to bring in, because basically it's going to appeal to everybody who's throwing their money away on lottery tickets that's already destitute and vulnerable, and figures like, well, this is my shot. I'm going to go like gamble at the casino. They're already poor. They can't afford to lose. And the city and Vallas is going to be capitalizing all that. It's going to feed into gambling addiction. It's going to bring in an element that I don't necessarily think we need, that we're already dealing with. To your point, the McCormick site would have been better. Yeah. I mean, if there was going to be a compromise, it makes more sense. It's got the lake view there, and it's empty. Yeah, I see.
The Airy Crown Theater is there. I mean, it could have been utilized that way and been an amenity to the city. And that's it. It's out of the way. And I think that all the conventions will be like Las Vegas. The conventions are there because the entertainment is there.
That's right. You can cross that bridge across the Lakeshore Drive and get building to building.
Yeah. But anyway, I don't know if it's a done deal. It seems like it's a done deal at this point. So we're going to have to live with it and see how we can deal with the new traffic that's going to be happening. And can we redo the infrastructure there to make sure it works? If you're on Chicago Avenue in Halsted and coming down Halsted going south, you're stuck. You're bumper to bumper. And then Chicago Avenue, once they fixed the bridge, and it's a 2-lane bridge. Didn't they think that one through?
No, they don't think any of this stuff through, Jim.
Yeah,
they don't think any of this stuff through, and that's what's most infuriating and confounding about all of this. So, any parting thoughts that you have before we don't want to tie up your entire evening, but is there anything you want to leave our viewers with in regards to the 34th Ward, Chicago, and your candidacy?
I think we're in an exciting time that we have new people coming on the council. This is a totally new ward that's been created, and I am looking forward to serving the constituents of that ward, as well as to be part of at least levels of transparency and accountability for the city to its constituents. That's my role, and I will do that full time. So thank you again, Jerry and Ed, for having me on. It was a good conversation. I know that from listening to you, other things that you've done, we seem to be on the same page.
I think so too. And like I said to my audience, I've known Jim a long time, and I like I said, man of integrity. His heart's in the right place. I'm so grateful that you chose this journey to serve the 34th Ward and the citizens of Chicago, as well as hopefully bring some change to City Council here, much needed change, especially when it comes to mental health issues, when it comes to affordable housing. And it's going to be quite a job redeveloping that area that the 34th Ward now stretches into. But I think with your background, you're the right guy to take that on. So everybody, you can find Jim's website, Jim Ascot for Alderman. There's this picture there. You can read more about the issues, his history, and volunteer or vote if you are in the 34th. Not the marbles tonight. I don't know what. You know what? We've been off the air we were off the air for almost 2 weeks for vacation, so I'm just kind of getting back up to speed here.
Very good. Well, thank you again, Jerry and Ed. Pleasure, and we'll talk soon. Hopefully, as the alderman.
Absolutely. Take care, Jim. Have a good
evening. Thank you. Bye.
All right, everybody. You heard it from the man himself, Jim Ascot for 34th Ward Alderman. I was about to say person. What is I'm just stumbling all over the place tonight. Jim Ascot for 34th Ward Alderman. He's a man. If it's a woman, it can be alderwoman, alderperson, whatever. But
he can still be an alderperson.
Yeah, he can be an alderperson. Alderperson. I'm just so used to saying alderman. Yeah. So I hope that that was informative for everybody. And if you're in the 34th Ward, and have an opportunity to vote, you'll support Mr. Ascot. I know if I lived there, I would.
Yeah, the alternative there is a guy who's a son of a billionaire.
Yes, yeah. I didn't even get into that, but I'm like, what's his background? Look, I've known that Jim has been in real estate for a long time, but I also know he's very much involved in public service, civic action. His background as a mental health counselor. He's got an empathy there that understands what's needed to serve everybody, not just.
Yeah. And I think that'll be helpful, especially with all the other new Aldermanic candidates that we hope are going to get in as well. Because, it's going to take a large variety of different backgrounds and experiences to put together like a team of aldermen to really turn the city around and get it back on the correct footing. And it seems like he's a good choice for that board.
I think so. All right. So, as I mentioned at the top of the show, Chicago Corner will be live streaming the People's Response Network Mayoral Forum this Sunday, January 15th. We will begin the live stream at 2:15. Ed, do you still have that flyer up?
Stand by.
All right.
Okay. Yes.
And also, a quick note to everybody in the live chat. My iPhone is synced with my laptop that I'm live streaming from. My instant messaging on my laptop is not on. But for some confounding reason, anytime someone texts me on my iPhone, it rings on my computer. I don't know how to turn it off. I do not know how to turn it off. I've looked at sound settings for my instant messenger on my laptop, even when it's off. And it seems that the iPhone just automatically sends an alert to my laptop, even when instant messaging is not on my laptop. So I apologize for that. I don't mean for it to be a distraction. This happens whenever I've co-hosted with Kid. He's like, you got to turn off your phone. I'm like, it's silenced. I don't know what else to do here other than
Jerry, we can just blame Cousin Lou for texting you during the show. He's doing it on purpose.
It could be. I haven't even looked at the text yet, so I don't know who it was. But here's the information on the People's Response Chicago Mayoral Forum. Now, representatives of the People Response Network will be with us this Friday to talk not only about the forum, but about what their organization does to serve the people of the city of Chicago. So we're excited to have that conversation with them this Friday. In the meantime, the reason I'm mentioning we're going to be, and also, you know what, Ed? We're exclusively live streaming that forum.
That's true.
If you can't be there, the only place you can see it is on Chicago Corner's YouTube or ChicagoCornerTV.com. As you can see,
go to ChicagoCornerTV.com. I got our YouTube already loaded up in there, but we'll also have a link to the YouTube and Rockfin streams, or whichever ones happen to be live. So you should be able to find us at ChicagoCornerTV.com. For
those who came in late, Art, Lightfoot won't be there on Sunday, you predict? She's not. Her team has already said they're going to be sending a representative. And I was involved in some of the meetings with People's Response Network to plan and prepare and do all of the stuff that needs to be done before Sunday. And we were discussing this. It's like, we didn't invite her representative. We invited her. She's sending a representative just to make it look like she cares or that she's going to be there. She had a prior commitment, and I'm going to look into what that prior commitment was because I'm guessing it's a fundraiser. That's what I'm speculating. But nobody wants to hear from her. Her representative's not going to speak on her behalf. We want questions to her, and she's not showing up. He's not showing up.
Hang on, Jerry. Wait. What are you saying? You saying Lori can send somebody else to a forum? Can I do that too?
Don't give me any ideas.
You know he's going to.
So
maybe he'll show up. I mean, I think he likes these forums.
No, they are not even responding to the organizers who are putting in so much work. Believe me, they're putting in a lot of work to make this happen. And they are right now engaged in passing around press releases to the major news organizations here in Chicago to try and get a turnout there. But if you can't be there in person at the Quinn Chapel, where Dr. King spoke, and which was historically a location with the Underground Railroad here in Chicago, back when the church was first built. I mean, it's an incredible location to have this forum, as the focus of the forum is how are the candidates going to be serving the people. And can you read from that, Ed, so we can just talk about some of the forum supporters there?
Where am I reading from?
Under the statement on Dr. King.
Here we go.
Some of the supporters.
We've got Bethel AME Church, Chicago Anti-War Coalition, Communities Organized to Win, and
everyone whose logos is showing.
And all these logos. Oh, here we go. So we got a lot of people supporting this thing.
Yeah. Now, the reason we wanted to promote the forum we're going to be covering this Sunday is because we do have some information on the previous forum that took place last week. And it was sponsored by and presented by Access Living, which is the organization here in Chicago that serves the interests and needs of Chicago's disabled community. But the forum wasn't just about serving the disabled community and what candidates are expected to do. It reached, it covered a lot of other issues, and mental health is not just an issue for disabled people or physically challenged people. It's a issue for everybody. So mental health was a big topic at this forum. So this comes to us from Block Club Chicago. Will Chicago's next mayor reopen mental health clinics? Garcia doesn't say. Now, let me also say something about Garcia, okay? Garcia is so fucking smug at all these forums. He announced late after he was asked again in early. He secured his spot as congressman, right? He ran in that election. Then he decided, well, I do not want to be congressman. I want to be mayor of the city of Chicago. Bullshit. I suspect, my speculation is, I don't know how they're going to do it, but Chewy's pretty much a done deal. I'm sensing he is so smug and confident he's going to win. Who else was like this when they ran? Rahm Emanuel. Rahm Emanuel came in the 11th hour. The Democratic elite that runs Democratic politics around the rest of the country has got its tentacles all over Chicago, all over Cook County, all over the state of Illinois. I think that the Democratic Party feels that Lightfoot is clearly vulnerable, and to retain their control, they're going to figure out how to slip in Chewy. I don't know how, because obviously we have to rely on, a legitimate vote, even if 30% of, Chicago comes on to vote here. But I don't know, Ed. The way this guy just slides in and out and just acts like it's in the bag really freaks me out, as far as like relating it to how Emanuel slipped.
Yeah, he definitely feels overconfident about the situation, and I think it's just because of the grasp that the Democratic machine has on the Chicago machine. And we know what the game plan is with the Dems on this. I mean, Jerry's talked about it several times. It's like Chewy is basically he's going to be the alternate to Lori, who most of the city can't stand, from my perspective. And then if Lori happens to get more votes than a majority of the other candidates running against her, he basically serves to act as a spoiler for those other candidates.
Exactly. It's a diabolical strategy. Legal.
And then if Lori gets a substantially lower amount of votes than maybe she was expecting, then Chewy ends up with the majority over them, just because he's the Dem front runner, the darling, and the chosen one, formerly connected with Harold Washington. And so now we've got, but unfortunately, Chewy's been in government way too long. He's got way too many connections with the wrong kind of people, and he was way too smug in waiting to decide whether he wanted to stay in Congress or run for mayor, and he thinks he can have it both ways.
Yeah, this is about what serves Chewy, not what serves the citizens of Chicago or the constituents that he's supposed to be representing in Congress.
And so
who's handling Congress business while he's running around here to get the gold prize of the fifth floor?
Yeah, if he was really serious about wanting to run for mayor here in Chicago, he would have jumped on the teachers' endorsement, the teachers' union endorsement,
and really had it in the bag by virtue of the association with them.
So having screwed them over, basically he's signaled to everybody that he's not serious about this race.
But he's entitled to it.
Yeah. Well, he thinks he's entitled to it, and we're going to disillusion. We're going to what's the word? We're gonna dissolve you of that notion, or whatever that turn of phrase is. We're gonna set you straight on this.
We're gonna usurp that notion.
Yeah, whatever the phrase was. Anyway, so you've got teachers union endorsing Brandon Johnson. Seems like a good guy. Okay, we've watched it on a couple forums now. We'll see.
Can you offer what you shared? Offer with me.
Yeah.
what
I
you
was
shared about
telling-
Johnson and J. Mal, because I thought it's funny
Okay.
and you're right. Go ahead. Just
I was watching that last forum, and I was sending text messages to Jerry as I was watching, and I said, Brandon Johnson seems like J. Mal's boring older brother, and it's like if J. Mal, yeah.
Go ahead with the butt. What's your big butt? What's your big butt that we also talked about when I was talking with you?
I was talking about. I'm like, if J. Mal and Brandon Johnson teamed up, they could be unstoppable.
Yes, I agree. I like J. Mal because he's fresh blood. I love his hustle. I love the fact that he is engaged in the community. He's out there. He's done stuff. He's doing stuff. Brandon Johnson, I know that he's got the city's interests, and he's a more experienced politician, although I don't know that, that experience necessarily shows that people are qualified, because all the experienced people have continued to fuck things up. But I don't think Johnson would screw things up. But yeah, they would be a real tag team for the city of Chicago. If Johnson won, I would really hope that he would take to heart J. Mal's suggestions, or if J. Mal won, I would hope that he would also ally himself with Johnson's suggestions. I think that they're both, and isn't it interesting how neither is covered by all the mainstream news? Because right now, the last polling I saw was Garcia in first place, Vallas in second place, Lightfoot and Wilson. They don't even mention Johnson or Green, and I don't know where their polling comes from. That Chewy's got the name recognition, so he's. I am Cornelio Vallas. Give me your tipi.
Yeah, Joe Biden does that pose too with the hands. I don't know what that's about.
I think that's a constipation pose, is what I think. He's got to go. He's just.
I gotta pee. I gotta pee.
But I gotta stay here and answer questions first.
Okay.
So
yes, yeah. I mean, some of these preliminary polls, I mean, they're probably slanted depending on who actually sponsored the poll or who they actually got to respond. And, it's like people aren't even aware of polls going on. Did it really happen?
Well, I want to do a tangent with Chewy, but let me get back to the article, because what it goes into talking about is Lightfoot found herself on the defense Saturday as candidates vowed to reopen mental health clinics closed under former Mayor Rahm Emanuel. And thank Christ that they did. 7 of the 9 mayoral candidates showed up to the Saturday forum hosted by Access Living, a nonprofit focused on breaking down systemic barriers for people who are disabled. Mayor Lori Lightfoot, Representative Jesus the Stash Garcia. I'm calling him the Stash from now on. I'm not
Stash.
Jesus the Stash Garcia. Alderman Sophia King of the 4th, State Representative Cam Buckner, activist Jamal. You know what? Is it Jamal or Jamal?
Jamal.
It's Jamal. That's what I thought. That's how I've been pronouncing it. Someone was correcting me and saying it's Jamal, and I've always heard it as Jamal. So anyway, activist Jamal Green, Cook County Commissioner Brandon Johnson, and former CPS CEO Paul Vallas were in attendance. Businessman Willie Wilson and Alderman Roderick Sawyer didn't show.
Where's Vallas? Lost him on the buttons. Oh, here he is. Vallas.
There he is. Saturday's panel was this was the first. We were at the Copernicus Mayoral Forum, Ed, and it was spectacular. Very well organized, very well attended, in a beautiful, the Copernicus Center Theater auditorium. There were hundreds of people there. Of course, Lightfoot and Garcia did not show the courtesy of showing up, although Lightfoot sent a table with her campaign literature. But this panel was the first for Lightfoot and Garcia, and comes after a recent survey that shows Lightfoot trailing 3 challengers: Garcia, Johnson, and Vallas. Oh, so this is a different poll that references Johnson. The panel focused on issues for disabled Chicago and surrounding criminal justice, transportation, special education teacher shortages, mental health, and ding, 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 affordable housing. When asked about mental health, the other candidates said Lightfoot refused to reopen 6 mental health clinics closed under former Mayor Rahm Emanuel. Last year, Lightfoot's administration pushed back hard when a group of alder people proposed reshuffling mental health spending to reopen closed clinics. On Saturday, she said her alternative plan, the Trauma-Informed Centers of Care Network, TICCCN, TICCN, that funds community mental health organizations in the city's only five remaining mental health clinics across the city, had 5 to serve our population. was a more successful model offering culturally relevant services in all 77 neighborhood areas.
I guess we'll have to figure out if those are actually more effective or not. I mean, we read any stories on data on that? We don't have any information on whether her plan is better.
I think that we would have seen that on any of the news sites reporting stuff here in Chicago as well as Block Code, but haven't seen anything. There was a lot of conversation about reopening the mental health clinics. I thought about that too and argued for it, Lightfoot said. But then what I heard from the experts and what I heard from patients is that they didn't want clinician care that our clinics offer. What they wanted was to be able to go to culturally relevant services in their neighborhood. What the fuck does culturally relevant? It's identity politics, Ed. She's pushing those buzzwords. Culturally relevant services. Mental health is a cross-cultural issue. Okay? Period. This is more bullshit spin to throw out, to pander to the identity politics that she routinely engages in. Garcia said he'd work to hire more mental health clinicians, expanding access to health care in collaboration with Cook County, but didn't say whether he'd reopen the clinics. There's a greater need for mental health services today specifically, he said, adding that he prioritized expanding health care across the city, whether it's Chatham, Little Village, or Uptown. Other candidates Saturday said their mental health policies include reopening those shuttered clinics. Many of the candidates said they have family members who have disabilities, but some struggle to give specific policy initiatives they'd implement that would directly impact Chicago's disabled community. When asked about how candidates would make transportation more accessible, King mentioned creating a collaboration between all public transportation systems, and Vallas pitched more police officers on the CTA in order to keep the disabled safe. How about keeping everybody safe?
Yeah.
How
about fixing and upgrading all of the entryways and access points that disabled people need in order to function with the rest of society?
Elevators, escalators. Kathy's told us a couple times on certain CTA stops that don't have disabled accommodations.
Or they let them break down. Yeah. And it's like, these are things you should be regularly maintaining and making sure are functioning and operating properly and serving people in the way that these things need to serve.
Now, this is interesting. Johnson said he'd add ambassadors to the CTA who could assist riders with disabilities. Okay. Not a bad proposal. While Buckner pitched online booking for paratransit services. Not a bad idea either. Green, Johnson, and Buckner also said they would implement a municipal snow removal program to make sidewalks more accessible in the winter. Now, I want to address a comment that Kathy made in the chat a little while ago about Jamal. He doesn't play well with people. Kathy, are you sure you're not projecting? I'm just teasing you, hon. You have to be tough. You can't play nice with everybody if you're going to get shit done. So, yeah, I haven't heard anything. Well, actually, I have heard one thing that's unsubstantiated, but how I analyzed it was he had to be tough on something. His goals and what I heard were greater than the person who was insulted by how I guess it was presented, and I'm still not sure how. Anyway, I don't want to get into it because I don't have all the details or all the facts. You got to.
I'm sure we're going to have Jamal on the show again, and so if you have any issues or people you want him to collaborate with, let us be the conduit to ask him about those.
I'll ask him. I know what the circumstances were that I heard, and I will ask him if he's willing to talk about that or find out what the story was to properly analyze it. But
I think this show can serve a lot of purposes, Jerry. I think we can work to help people collaborate with each other in the city. It doesn't just have to be us talking to candidates and getting their feedback. It can be us making suggestions on how they can better work within that framework or the things that they want to do in government or local service or whatever to help the community. And maybe that involves, for example, Jamal working with Brandon Johnson on something, and it could be us who brings that up and to at least get the ball rolling on collaboration in ways where maybe they're not considering it before, but they may not realize that it's actually in all of their best interests and everyone's best interests that we make these things happen.
What's very refreshing that I've seen about the forum so far, Ed, is that the candidates there's no acrimony amongst them. They're respectful to each other. They all have a lot of the same platforms. They just have different ideas on how to implement them. Now, Kathy says it's easy to choose who is ego running. Do they have their own agenda or the people's agenda? Very good point. Mm-hmm. I don't think Johnson nor Green are ego running. I think that they are invested in doing what's best by the people. I think for Vallas, it's ego running. I think for Garcia, clearly it's ego running. I think for Lightfoot, she's never going to want to accept the loss or just resign because nobody likes her because she's proven to be such a horrific failure. Now, I can't speak to Sophia King. I can't speak. Well, Wilson isn't an ego thing. He seems to be like a career candidate. He always likes to run. Because I think it's a status thing for him. He's got the money to do it. Maybe that's an ego thing. I'm not positive about Wilson. I think he wants to serve his community. But I do think that there might be some ego involved. I mean, this is all speculation. But I think in the case of Green and Johnson, Kathy, no, I don't think it's an ego thing. I think that they've proven that they've done things in their communities to help people and serve the people, not just their own egos.
Yeah, I'm at a certain point when you're promoting yourself for as a candidate, you kind of have to tout your achievements, and sometimes that can come off as having a bit of an ego. But it's like, I'm not on 100% of the time. It's like when I'm on this show, I'm like way more focused on talking with you, the audience, and Jerry, and then anybody who's on the show. But if I'm not, and I'm promoting myself and my website, but that's not what I'm doing 24/7.
Self-promotion is an important factor in running for mayor. Some people might misconstrue it as being an ego thing. And okay, you have to have a healthy amount of ego to be in politics. Let's not pretend about that. Because of all the other personalities you've got to interact with, negotiate with, or do deals with on behalf of your agenda that's meant to serve the people, as Johnson and Green, I think, have set forth. So yeah, well, time will tell. I think that it's great that Green, Johnson, and Buckner said they'd implement the municipal snow removal program, because again, that also creates jobs and it makes it easier for everybody in the community, as well as disabled people and seniors who have a tough time going and clearing out their walk, lest they get an expensive, hefty ticket from the city for not doing so. And where does that fucking money go? Lightfoot touted the city's $118 million from the Federal Department of Transportation to continue modernizing CTA stops across the city by making them accessible. When asked about the Chicago Public Schools special education teacher shortage, many of the candidates said they'd increase pay and pathways for people to become teachers. King and Green said they'd create programs to help teachers secure housing. King suggested interest-free loans to build a home. Green recommended covering those teachers' down payments and closing costs. They're the one profession where we throw everything at their feet that we're unable to resolve and ask them to do that. They need that incentive, King said. Vallas, who has experienced leading school systems in Chicago, Philadelphia, and New Orleans. Oh, and might I also parse, he ignored the sexual abuse scandal under his tenure when he was the superintendent of schools in Chicago. That came out later. All the stuff we reported on last year with all this weird sexual scandals across schools, that's nothing new. That was stuff that was happening under his tenure that didn't get investigated, which is why I think the problem continued. I'm speculating here to the degree where suddenly people had to look at it and investigate it and take it seriously. But that's my problem with Vallas. He talks about all his responsibility. He always leans on, I was the superintendent of Chicago Public Schools. So how the fuck did that happen while you were superintendent of schools? And why didn't you look into the circumstances to make sure it didn't happen to any other vulnerable minors or Chicago Public School students? That's my problem with Vallas. And I'm also going to say, I have a lot of Greek friends who are Vallas supporters because he's Greek. I don't care what he is. I don't care if he's Greek. I don't care if he's Chinese. I don't care if he's Muslim. White, whatever. The fact that this guy ignored or turned a blind eye to what was happening during his tenure as superintendent with those sexual abuse scandals is enough for me to say he should not be showing his face in public anymore to run for office when you've got that on your back. But of course, no one brings it up. That's why I am. That's something everybody needs to remember. He
Well,
ignored
it's fine though. He's got the endorsement of the FOP, Jerry.
and he's got, yeah, we're going to talk about that in a moment. The fact he's got the endorsement of the Fraternal Order of Police should tell you everything you need to know about why he should be last on any polling. Okay, period. Now, let me continue the article, though. Sorry, I went off on a rant. When asked about reentry plans for disabled people leaving prison, Green said he'd give $1,000 a month to 10,000 residents living in poverty, which would include people leaving prison. Returning home, we should make sure that they have a pathway to live in a middle-class life, to be able to get access to real job opportunities, and we need to give them that foundation, Green said. King said she'd give $600 a week to some people under a universal income program, which would include job training and social services. All right, I don't have a problem with, I don't think it should be a requirement because, circumstances differ from person to person, but I think that, that's something that should be reasonably explored if there really is job training there, with the addition of supporting them with some social services. Buckner said he would implement individualized reentry plans, while Garcia said he would take a holistic approach with various community partnerships and employment opportunities.
Holistic approach?
Holistic, yeah.
That sounds like he didn't have an answer for that.
I will take a holistic approach while I comb my mustache. 2 mayoral forums are planned for this Saturday. One is hosted by...
that really is a broom, isn't it?
Isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I should talk, really. Mine is kind of...
Jesus the Stash Garcia. Now, Block Club mentions 2 mayoral forums are planned for this Saturday. One is hosted by the Libertarian Party of Chicago and the other by the Chicago Women Take Action. Make sure, interesting that they have not yet mentioned the People's Response Network mayoral forum at, here we go, at the Quinn Chapel this Sunday, where they will be asking what are mayoral candidates going to do for us, the people? What are candidates' positions on expanding public union jobs and services for our communities and reversing privatization? So I just want to, parse that with, there's some forums on Saturday, but ours is going to be better. And you'll be able to watch it in the Chicago corner.
Yeah, and it's very possible they're going to be asking questions based on the content in the Chicago Corner Manifesto. So you're going to want to hear the answers that the candidates give to the questions they're asking on Sunday.
We will have an opportunity this Friday when we bring representatives of the People's Response Network onto the show to talk about what they do, separate from the forum, and make sure we give them a little nudge that, and I also told them those questions aren't from us, Chicago Corner. Well, they are from us. They're from our viewers, because our viewers are what make Chicago Corner what it is. I said those comments were collected through conversations we would have with our viewers in the live chat. And we hope that they were able to integrate them because the questions will affect, the issues affect all Chicagoans, not just Chicago Corner viewers. All right, I'm trying to bring up this next screen regarding Vallas. So yeah, as we kind of teased in the last story, as the screen loads, the Chicago Police Union endorses Paul Vallas for mayor. This comes to us from Gregory Pratt at the Chicago Tribune. Chicago's Fraternal Order of Police has endorsed Paul Vallas in his campaign for mayor. Union President John Clownton-Zara announced. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say Clownton-Zara? I meant Cotton-Zara. Now, I don't know why okay, there it is. It's loading. We got a picture of Mr. Paul glad handing with a Chicago police officer. Hey, look, we support law enforcement so long as they're living up to the ideals of what law enforcement's supposed to be, and not escalating situations on adrenaline rushes and shooting people and then claiming that they fear for their lives afterwards when they want to cover up police cam video, and we have to file Freedom of Information Act requests to find out what happened to people like Anjanette Young. But aside from that, all right, there he is with a Chicago police officer during the Columbus Day Parade on October 10th. Now, although Chicago police and their supporters mark an important demographic in local elections, the endorsement from the union is a double-edged sword for Vallas, the former Chicago Public Schools CEO. The Fraternal Order of Police has long been criticized for defending police misconduct And Catanzara, in particular, has been a lightning rod for controversy. Now, it's interesting. Lori Lightfoot went on Twitter the other day and said, this endorsement from the Fraternal Order of Police shows everything that you need to know, regarding Vallas's claim he's been a lifelong Democrat. Now, it's interesting because Lori Lightfoot tends to pander to the Chicago Police Department also. She acts like she's tough on the abuses. She's not. She's trying to play both sides of the fence. Now, in this case, she's trying to make it look like a liability, although, it's clearly going to be a liability for her in criticizing Vallas's endorsement by them when she's on such slippery footing with them to begin with. Catanzara retired from the Chicago Police Department while facing potential termination after a career as one of the department's most disciplined officers. The head of the Chicago Fraternal Order of Police, ladies and gentlemen, is one of the department's most disciplined officers. He has also made numerous offensive statements, including defending January 6th protesters in the aftermath of the Capitol insurrection and comparing Mayor Lori Lightfoot's vaccine mandate to the Holocaust. Catanzara is also a vocal supporter of former President Donald Trump and regularly appeared at city council meetings in a Trump jersey. Look, he can wear whatever the fuck he wants, but it clearly shows his lack of class in the decorum that is usually expected during a city council meeting. Underscoring the union's status as a controversial entity, Catanzara said only 2 candidates sought the group's endorsement, Vallas and his buddy, businessman Willie Wilson. Remember at the petition drop-off when we interviewed those two? They were thick as thieves. They looked like they were going to do a road movie together. That's what they looked like they were going to do.
Yeah, yeah, Jerry. So you were talking earlier. It's like about how all the candidates they were very cordial to each other, but like Vallas and Wilson, way too buddy.
Way too. Yep. I see a buddy comedy there in their future when both lose the election. A spokesperson for Lightfoot, who sparred with Catanzara throughout her term, criticized the endorsement, saying Vallas should condemn the Fraternal Order of Police's history of hate-filled rhetoric rather than standing alongside him and carrying the shared MAGA values into City Hall. Well, I can agree with her on that. Or I'm assuming it's a her. I don't know if the spokesman is a male or female. I can agree with them on that. As a candidate, Vallas has faced criticism for his volunteer work with the Fraternal Order of Police while it negotiated its union contract with the Lightfoot administration. But in a recently launched campaign ad, Vallas highlighted his work with the Fraternal Order of Police in recent years to help broker the deal and attempt to position himself as a moderating force.
Uh-huh.
In recent years, Vallas has made crime a top subject of his public profile. Vallas frequently delivers a fire hose of social media posts about violence in Chicago, arguing it's important to support the police and loosen restrictions on their work. In previous interviews, Vallas wants more of what he calls proactive policing. How about proactive investment in the community, Paul? How about reallocating the resources we were talking about in the interview segment?
How about a complete overhaul of the institutional policing system that prefers escalation over de-escalation, Paul?
Yep. Yes, Kathy. Give him some teepee for his bunghole. K-pop girl shares empty words when your budget increases funding. Yeah. Yep. There's still a proud boy in the CPD, and that's John Catanzara. All right.
Yeah, I was almost thinking, because Vallas is Cornholio, but I mean, Willie's not Beavis, is he?
He has the
hey
the
Beavis.
Reflections.
Hey Beavis.
All right. Proactive policing, which includes ramping up low-level arrests. No, Paul. No. It has not reduced crime. Despite a short mental health support, investing in the communities, proactive solutions, low-level arrests. It's just the same old from these guys. They're pandering.
They want to react. They want to react to crime, but they don't want to keep it from happening in the first place.
Because there's no
money. They cannot see past the crime that's happening now. They have no idea. They think that crime just happens out of nothing.
And there's no reason for it. There's not systematic breakdowns that cause it to happen.
I mean, and don't get me wrong. Yes, we know that there's going to be a few jokers in the city who just want to watch the city burn, but they're in the minority of the crime that happens. A lot of the crime in the city is out of desperation for need of money or property or things or power or whatever. The crime is happening because other things aren't happening.
And there's I mentioned earlier when we were talking about mental health, what people don't seem to be able to realize, Ed, take yourself out of your own shoes and imagine being a kid whose parents physically abused them because those parents were physically abused by their parents before in low-income communities that are desperate and vulnerable and have no support invested into them. That doesn't happen on the North Side as much, okay? It doesn't happen in the privileged white communities, I'm going to say. And I speak to this firsthand because, again, I've mentioned this several times on the show. I'm actively editing a documentary that relates to gun violence and the collateral damage on families who've lost loved ones who aren't even in gangs. But we're talking about a lot of these kids who unfortunately drift and gravitate into gang life, who get involved in gun violence and crime. They themselves are like abused. They're not growing up in the same kind of environment that you or I had, right? With parents that knew better. Many are. Many of the parents in this documentary that I'm working on, they were able to keep their kids away from that because of good parenting, but they could not protect them from kids involved in gang and gun violence that weren't. You have to invest and figure out how to change things in these communities if you're going to want to see any kind of reduction in crime that does not involve arresting people for low-level offenses and not striking at the root of what causes someone who is desperate to decide they've got no other option, or they don't know any better because that's all they've known in their lives growing up. That's what people can't wrap their minds around. Thankfully, they can't because they haven't had that experience. But you need to get out of your own comfort zone and realize, oh, well, so-and-so, they lifted themselves up from their bootstraps. Yeah, great. That's a very, very rare thing, relying on other circumstances, okay? Not everybody can pick themselves up from their bootstraps if they are dealing with generational cyclical abuse, especially in these communities we're talking about.
Or if they don't have bootstraps to begin with.
That's right. You can't pull yourself up by your bootstraps if you don't have boots. So Vallas wants to include ramping up low-level arrests. Despite a shortage of police officers, it's important to chip away at the environment of constant disorder. And that starts with less serious offenses that can possibly create a pipeline towards violence, Vallas said. Like what? Drug crimes? Being caught in a public space, you're not supposed to be smoking weed. That's considered a low-level arrest. You're going to throw that person in jail who has absolutely no threat whatsoever to anybody because you made the law that, it's okay to drink and we don't want people to drive, but drinking's okay. But cannabis and marijuana, because they can't figure out how to tax and monetize it. They could, now they are. Now it's becoming more and more acceptable so long as those who have the money and the power can figure out how to monetize that.
Yeah, these low-level arrest thoughts. It's a mindset of the need for compliance instead of actually helping your community.
All right,
you want them to respect authority without having any kind of support system for them to be able to contribute into a society without being in desperation or whatever.
Now, even a broken clock is right twice a day. Vallas has also said he wants to revoke the city's foot pursuit policy that was released in June, more than a year after back-to-back fatal shootings of two people who were being chased by... Oh, wait a minute. He wants to revoke...
He wants to revoke it?
No, he's not right. I'm sorry. I thought he was talking about supporting it. I misread that. No. All right, so the broken clock...
He wants foot chases to continue or to resume?
Yeah, let me continue that. Sorry, I misread that. I was looking at it. I'm like, oh, wow. Oh, no, not so much. Vallas has also said he wants to revoke the city's foot pursuit policy that was released in June, more than a year after back-to-back fatal police shootings of two people who were being chased by officers, including 13-year-old Adam Toledo. Among the policy's provisions is a rule that officers can only engage in a foot pursuit if there is a valid law enforcement need to detain the person that outweighs the dangers of the pursuit. Now, Vallas is just like, shoot first, ask questions later. In panning the policy to the Tribune, Vallas said, quote, "It looks like a checklist," he said. "All you're doing is creating more obstacles for a police officer to move and attack decisively. Why would you even get out of a police car if you see a criminal running down the street? Why would you even want to chase them if you don't have that checklist?"
How about don't get out of your car, because you're going to create a situation that's going to exacerbate things instead of de-escalate things.
I read an article recently a tweet regarding a police vehicle pursuit. They were on the adrenaline high. They were pursuing some suspect in a speeding car, and they ended up ramming another car and killing a teenage girl who had nothing to do with it because they were so amped up on, like, instead of maybe, like, I don't know, having police block exit ramps on the expressways, that you have the state police and you have the police. If you're chasing someone in a high speed pursuit on interstates or expressways, you block the ramps. Okay, you block the ramps, and because they're not going to be able to get off elsewhere, and you set up a barricade way down, right? That's what police radios are for. State police, you coordinate, set up a barrier, miles down, line up the squad cars they can't get past, and shut down all the exits. You box them in. You don't go like speeding after a suspect at the risk of killing other people and ramming your police vehicles into them, as is what happened with this tweet that I read about this teenager that she was in the car with her family and the police rammed it, killed her. I don't know if they got the suspect either. But that's basically a demonstrative of why this is a bad idea to escalate like that. Now, in a community with like streets that aren't on expressway, okay, that's got its challenges. But the thing we saw in the Toledo incident was that the cop chased him down the alley. There were other people in the alley that had nothing to do with this that could have gotten caught in the crossfire if the cop decided to start shooting earlier. So, anyway, let me go on.
It comes down to retraining police in a different way. And I don't know, maybe we got to find another city that's doing it properly, where they don't escalate everything, where they found the right way to de-escalate and use police in a sparing way instead of an overwhelming authoritarian way. And then we copy that, right?
Yeah. This is why the Fraternal Order of Police supports Vallas, Ed. This next paragraph. This is red meat out to the imbeciles. Though Vallas is an outspoken critic of how police are operating under Lightfoot, he has also talked about the importance of violence prevention programs, including keeping schools open through the summer and Saturdays, and make sure you're not going to pay the teachers any more money. You're not going to give them any vacation time, right? Because it's a babysitting service is what it is.
Oh, yeah, sorry, they don't get vacation anymore. Yeah. They got to keep the schools open.
Schools are not meant to keep an eye on students. Schools are meant to teach and educate and provide support for students, not to keep them off the streets. And helping people who are unemployed or previously spent time in prison find work. Okay, but yeah, you need to do that, but that's not the whole answer to violence prevention. Crime has been a top subject in the 2023 mayoral campaign. Violent crime spiked to its highest level in decades during 2020, a year marked by COVID-19 and civil unrest following the Minneapolis police murder of George Floyd. In 2022, the city had 689 homicides through December 28th, according to city data and figures from the police department.
Yeah, well, Kathy, you're also correct there.
Yeah.
But
to the history they're supposed to learn, not the actual history that is suppressed.
Yeah. I mean, depending on your perspective, a lot of schools are there to teach conformity and to teach people to fit in with society, but they're also supposed to learn stuff. They used to teach things like civics and home economics and shop and all these other things that maybe some schools don't teach anymore. A lot of them are closing down their arts.
Unfortunately, in shop classes were a gateway to trade schools. Start that skill in high school so you can go into a trade school.
And regardless of whether you end up in a trade school, it's good to learn some of those skills.
In 2022, the city had 689 homicides through December 28th, according to city data and figures from the police department. But despite the 14% reduction, the total was still higher than it had been in 2019, the last year before COVID-19 took hold, when the city saw 496 killings through December 28th. Lightfoot has argued her plan is working, while critics say violent crime remains far too high. Proactive Solutions. Vallas and Wilson are among 8 people trying to unseat Lightfoot at the February 28th election. So, yeah, that's the Fraternal Order of Police endorsement. I don't know, man. I mean, I've never liked Vallas, and the fact that the Fraternal Order of Police is supporting him is even reason for me to dislike him more.
Well, it's not a plus on his side, even though he may think it is. I mean, but then it's just, all it really is he's catering to the dog whistle crowd that he's already catering to.
Xenophobia, racism.
You know, I mean, they had a candidate like that when Harold Washington was running. I forget what the guy's name was.
Bernie Epton.
Oh, Epton, yeah.
He's dog whistling to the Bernie Epton crowd is what he's doing. Because when a black candidate ran as a Democrat in a Democratic city, suddenly all the white people wanted to vote for a Republican, where they had voted Democrat before, which is mind-blowing.
And while we have come a long way from there are still elements that feel that way.
Yeah,
today,
unfortunately. All right, our next story. Speaking of mayoral contenders, Mr. Green is back in the news. This comes to us from the Sun-Times, and I don't know why. Is it opening on your end? Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I see it.
Okay. This comes from Fran Spielman. Now, this was cool. Jamal introduced this plan at a press conference last week. Unfortunately, we could not go down to cover it as much as we're trying to get out in the field. So only so far our resources go, which is why I'm going to encourage everybody, please support our Patreon so we can continue operating here at Chicago Corner. We don't even have a shoestring budget to go out and do this stuff and put the time in. It's a no-string budget, but we do it because it's our civic responsibility, but it can help. Okay.
We got a couple pieces of gum we could stick together, and I might have some extra duct tape, Jerry, but it would really help to have some cash.
Yeah, it's all Jerry's production gear is what that bubble gum and duct tape is. Anyway, mayoral challenger Jamal Green unveils $5 billion public safety plan. His plan takes aim at causes of crime. Here we go. Now, here's the antidote for everything Paul Vallas just set forth in responding to the Fraternal Order of Police's endorsement. Here come the proactive solutions. Why aren't more of the media focusing on Green or Johnson instead of Vallas and Chewy the Stash or Jesus the Stash Garcia, who's just gonna strut in there because he's a Democratic congressman who's been part of the neoliberal nightmare that we're all living in. All right, so Jamal's plan takes aim at causes of crime in an effort to stop the exodus of businesses and residents from the city and Chicago police officers from the department. Now, everybody who's in my chat, constitutional conservative, pay attention, that talk about the fact you need to spend more money on the police. Here is everything Green is presenting to prove you're wrong and why we need to reallocate the resources, all right? Albert Einstein famously defined insanity as doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results.
Oh wait,
wow.
That's not Einstein. Sorry, Jerry.
Was it Kit? Kit said that? It was a clone Cabello?
Well, Kit does say that. Actually, right. I think a lot of us say that.
Pop it up again?
Quote. Yeah,
doing the same thing over and over and expecting insanity. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting he didn't pop his. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. That's not a good Kid imitation, but you get the spirit of it.
Please like, share, and subscribe, and don't forget to hit that ring bell notification.
Roger Meadows tipped $2 for this. With that in mind, mayoral challenger Jamal Green on Tuesday unveiled a sweeping $5 billion public safety plan to confront the violent crime that is foremost on the minds of many Chicago voters. Like incumbent Mayor Lori Lightfoot, Green's approach attacks what he called, does Lori Lightfoot's plan mirror Green's? I guess we're going to find out here. All right, back to the article. Like incumbent Mayor Lori Lightfoot, Green's approach attacks what he calls the root causes of crime: entrenched poverty, neighborhood neglect, homelessness, joblessness, and despair. I haven't heard Lightfoot talking about any of those things. Have you?
No, sir. No,
Did
sir.
I miss it?
No,
Maybe-
sir.
maybe I
You
could
will
be wrong.
stop speaking.
I don't
You
recall
will
Lightfoot
stop
talking
speaking.
about.
You're full of crap, and that's the nicest thing that I can say.
Okay. All right. Unlike Lightfoot, Green said he wouldn't accept incremental process. I'm sorry. Unlike Lightfoot, Green said he won't accept incremental progress. He's pushing the envelope in every possible direction, hoping to deliver speedy results. Maybe that's the difference, that Lightfoot's plans are incremental, his are not. His plans include a universal preschool program for 3-year-olds, 10,000 year-round apprenticeships for people ages 13 to 25, and making Lightfoot's guaranteed minimum income pilot a permanent program, doubling its participants to 10,000 and monthly paycheck to 1,000 with strings attached. He also said he wants to reopen mental health clinics as holistic healing houses, dole out 100,000 Apple or Samsung AirTags to motorists to reduce the number of carjackings.
Okay.
That's a cool idea. I mean, that's what
Interesting.
Batman and Spider-Man use. They've got their little tracers that they throw on the criminals to track them. Put a AirTag in a car to track the carjackings. Install image sensors, cameras, concealed speakers, and emergency blue light call stations on targeted blocks, and create an armed and unarmed transit peacekeepers protection agency to reduce CTA crime. The youngest of 9 mayoral candidates, the 28-year-old Green, said his crime-fighting ideas, I like that, crime-fighting ideas, would cost $5 billion to fully implement. The youth apprenticeship program alone would cost $150 million a year for 10,000 jobs, so would the expanded minimum income program. But he argued the city and Chicago public schools can afford it, and there is no other choice to restore the sense of safety needed to reverse the black exodus from Chicago and solve the city's affordable housing crisis. There's no such thing as it's too much to create a safer city. Businesses are leaving. Families are leaving at a record pace. Young people are hopeless. Young people are carjacking. Young people are killing and being killed in our city. We're in a state of emergency, and we can't continue to do the same things that aren't working, Green said. I think, does Green watch the show? Maybe.
Well, I know he's tuned in from time to time.
Or maybe great minds all think alike. Maybe that's what it is.
Well, that, and also, I think a number of people on his staff watch us.
That's true. I do know his press secretary Amadeus watches us. I get the press releases from him direct. And thank you, Amadeus. We got to talk to Jamal about coming on the show again soon. This is the approach that has never been done. We have, year after year, tried to crack a whip and increase the police budget and increase the amount of officers. It's never worked. This is the way that we can decrease violence and get to a point where it's at levels never seen before, where it is almost non-existent. A community activist making his second run for mayor, Green is campaigning on a promise to create 10,000 new homeowners to repopulate South and West Side communities, in part by creating a Bank of Chicago. It's the public bank idea. Amara Enya proposed that also when she ran. I think she may have been the only. Well, I think Jamal was talking about it also before he dropped out of that race. But yeah, the public bank idea, Jamal's talked about. We talked about it with him at the Copernicus Center Mayoral Forum. If you look for on our Chicago Corner channel, not now, after the show, we now have a playlist of a Chicago mayoral candidate interviews as well as Chicago Aldermanic race candidate interviews. So you can go see the specifically subclip segments focusing on our interviews with each candidate there. Now, going back to the article and the Bank of Chicago, his public safety plan builds on that promise, but goes far beyond it to more quickly reduce a 120,000 unit shortage of affordable housing that he claims will take decades to eliminate with the trickle of affordable housing that Lightfoot administration is now creating. Green said he will keep the promise Lightfoot broke, to raise the real estate transfer tax on high-end home sales, to create a dedicated funding source to create affordable housing and reduce homelessness. But he also said he wants to offer city subsidies to developers of big box stores, groceries, banks, and churches who agree to build affordable housing above their ground floors. He also said he wants to relax zoning rules to allow the owners of single-family houses to build affordable units a floor above. Although his plan is heavily tilted towards confronting causes of crime and beefing up alternate response programs to mental health emergencies, Green isn't ignoring problems at the Chicago Police Department, where canceled days off have demoralized Chicago police officers retiring faster than replacements can be hired. Like retiring Alderman Sophia King of the 4th, Green said he wants to shift officers to 4-day work weeks. Unlike King, he would work them for 12 hours a day for 2 straight days with a mental health day in between, followed by 2 more 12-hour days. Officers buying their first home would get down payment assistance, background checks would be relaxed, and every one of the city's 22 police districts would finally have their own clinicians to counsel troubled officers in hope of stopping a wave of officer suicides. Green also said he wants to abolish the gang database and require officers to carry liability insurance to cover the cost of misconduct lawsuits.
Imagine that.
Imagine that. Who's talking about that? I don't know. I can't remember who's been screaming about that last year.
Yeah. Did he say anything about qualified immunity here, or he's going to wait on that one?
Well, let's see. Require officers to carry liability insurance to cover the cost of misconduct lawsuits against them and levy $5,000 fines against officers who turn off their body cameras. A city-run version of the Citizens app would also be created to keep tabs on verified crime and allow Chicagoans to rate their interaction with officers. It's a very balanced plan in my view, and a lot of officers' views, Green said. They've got things in there that they don't like and things that they will, but we have to get to a common ground. Hear, hear.
Hey, Jerry, I'm on that Chicago Cop Citizen app here, and I'm trying to hit the thumbs down on Officer Jerkface, and they disabled it on me. I don't get it.
Well, wait, what happened? So you went...
It's like, he was mean to me. I tried to hit the thumbs down, but the thumbs down button isn't working.
It's kind of like YouTube. You can't dislike things because you don't want to see politicians get ratioed by their constituents, calling them out on bullshit videos that are not addressing the things we're all screaming about.
Yeah, I was doing a dramatization, Jerry.
I gotcha. I'm sorry. I was focusing on the articles, and I
know. I am really bad at distracting Jerry, ladies and gentlemen. But
along with Oreo.
Oreo, he distracts Jerry, and then I distract Oreo. It's like a vicious cycle.
Yeah, Kathy, I like this. Make the Fraternal Order of Police pay those lawsuits. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we listed that in the manifesto there. We were suggesting, if we get rid of qualified immunity and then the officers have to buy their own insurance, and the uninsured officers who pays for those damages, the Fraternal Order of Police seems to be a no-brainer there. Yeah. They wouldn't be happy about it, but then maybe that would make them make sure that their guys are covered and not doing bad things.
And if they resist the liability insurance idea, which I think is very fair, doctors have to have liability insurance, attorneys do. If they resist the liability insurance, or if their union fights against it, great. Then it comes out of their pensions. Which are not even going to begin to cover the settlements that are paid out on police misconduct. But anyway, speaking of misconduct, and you know how much I love my transitions, this comes from Block Club Chicago. Who would have imagined? Too bad Kit's not here with us tonight.
That's a good one. That's a good one, Ethan.
Yeah, definitely. It's a man's world, Ethan, at least to the police department. All right. There's currently 11 CT elevators on a service. Stop it. I know, Kathy. I'm lucky I've got my Jeep. Otherwise, I'd be in the same boat. All right. So we've talked about the universally reviled General Iron and the environmental racism that they are so easy to engage in as they pollute the residential communities that they are relocated to. Now, General Iron officials say Emanuel and Lightfoot administrations pushed for metal shredders moved to the southeast side because, of course, they would. Because those are communities of color. Why wasn't there a push to get these metal shredders and polluters to areas far away from residential neighborhoods? Why do they have to be close?
Oops, wrong button.
Should I pause? Oh, go ahead.
Sorry about that. I meant to hit this one, and they look similar to the other one.
Yeah,
Sorry, Jerry.
naturally, naturally, this came down to a decision, not a decision, but a push by Emmanuel and Lightfoot.
No, sir. No, sir. No, sir. You will stop speaking. You will stop speaking. You're full of crap, and that's a nice.
I would like to thank the great mayor of the city of Chicago, Mayor Emanuel, for help making this happen today.
He made it happen all right. A company executive said Monday, we never would have closed on the General Iron assets without the city's 2019 agreement to cooperate with the planned move, according to the Sun-Times. The company did try to move and was eventually blocked by the city as neighbors protested the move and accused the city of environmental racism and trying to move the scrapper from wealthier, mostly white Lincoln Park to the mostly black and Latino southeast side. Southside Recycling, owned by Reserve Management Group, was denied a permit in February to move troubled scrapper General Iron's assets and employees to 11,600 South Burley Avenue in East Side. The city's health department denied the permit due to the unacceptable risk of air pollution, the Southeast Side's health vulnerabilities, and General Iron's history of environmental violations, officials said. The denial came despite the company's 2019 agreement with Lightfoot's administration in which the city pledged to cooperate with General Iron's planned move from Lincoln Park to East Side. Company officials testified to a city judge Monday that the agreement, combined with pressure from the Emanuel administration to leave General Iron's North Side site, which neighbors the $6 billion Lincoln Yards mega development, reflected the city's support for the company's plans, the Sun-Times reported. We never would have closed on the General Iron assets without this agreement, Joseph said, according to the Sun-Times. The testimony came as part of Reserve Management Group's appeal of the permit denial through the city's administrative hearings process. City attorneys Monday accused company lawyers of using red herrings in the appeal, the Sun-Times reported. Law Department spokesperson Kristen Kabanban.
That's a real name?
Kabanban. Kristen Kabanban. I'd like to meet her. I'd like to see her Kabanban. Oh, sorry.
Hey, you can't say that stuff. You're not ambassador of Japan where you can get away with anything, Jerry.
I wonder if Kristen Kabanban is in any way related to Kit Cabello. Anyway, Law Department. Kit Kabanban. That's one of his clones. Law Department. I have a right to joke about someone's last name with a last name like Vasilatos. Law Department spokesperson Kristen Kabanban declined to comment, citing ongoing litigation. Southeast Siders have resisted plans for this facility since General Iron's plans to leave Lincoln Park were finalized in 2019. They filed federal civil rights complaints, sued city officials, and held numerous rallies and protests in an effort to block Southside Recycling's operation. Several residents held a month-long hunger strike against the facility in 2021. You know,
reported on this.
Yeah, I was just about to say, we mentioned Toledo, the Adam Toledo tragedy. Now we're mentioning General Iron. That's when I joined you guys at Chicago Corner and Hardlands Media. And when I got thrust into this crazy stewardship of the channel, which I'm very grateful for. Interesting how things come full circle with our coverage. Company officials have blasted the denial as a political play in the face of residents' severe pushback, saying city health leaders ignored the results of their own health analysis and the state's prior approval of the scrapper. Quote, Chicago has loudly stated that politics, not signed agreements, its own laws and regulations, nor actual protection of human health and the environment is the ultimate consideration in all matters, company spokesperson Randall Sanborn said upon the permit's denial. The next hearing on Southside Recycling's appeal is set for Wednesday, Kabanban said. But if there's any question on, why this was allowed to happen, it was encouraged. It was encouraged by her and by him. Chicago, you won't ever find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. Right, Oreo? Meow. All right, let's get that story off and move on to our next story. Let's see what I got queued up here. It's a long show, but, we wanted to give you guys a lot of news since we were gone for a week. I hope everybody enjoyed the rebroadcasts and that little fake out that Ed and I did last Tuesday?
Was it? Yeah, last Tuesday.
That was fun. we were on Monday night. It's like, let's we were going to miss you guys, but we're like, let's give them a little something that's fresh to also hopefully introduce people to the New Year's Eve day live streams that we did with Kerberos Media in New York that you may have missed, and just run those segments. All right, let's see here. Oh, did you know, Ed, that Soldier Field is back in the news?
Yes, Jerry, I did know Soldier Field is back in the news.
And I'm going to bring up those stories because isn't it funny how they framed this plan that they've introduced? They are reimagining Soldier Field. And I said to Ed prior to the show, what they're doing is they're reimagining how they're going to waste taxpayer money to keep a billionaire team that can afford its own stadium and amenities in Chicago on the taxpayer's back. That's what they're reimagining. How to waste taxpayer money while people are sleeping under bridges and in tents. Ugh. All right, so here's the article. And I got to open it up here. So, a flag on the play. Latest Soldier Field plan is a false start on stadium's future. And let me read from the article here. Also, by the way, I don't know if the tweet loaded, but Cam Buckner weighed in on this. Oh, it hasn't loaded yet, so let me go back to the article. The proposal doesn't solve the Bears' problems with Soldier Field. The team can build bigger in Arlington Heights and can own and profit from whatever it builds there. A few hours before the start of the Chicago Bears game on Sunday, Mayor Lori Lightfoot stadium consultant released plans showing an amped-up and domed-over Soldier Field. It looks a little bit like the bean idea you had, Ed. Soldier Field bean. Do you have that?
Hang on a second. Let me see.
I'll read from the article. Tell me when you're going to pop it up, though, so I'm prepared.
Yeah.
All right. So, but no. All right, pop it up whenever you want. That's what she said. Because, this kind of has a bean. What's the word?
You mean this, Jerry?
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. Oh my God. Kind of has a bean theme going there.
Yeah. To be fair, I didn't do the original.
It has a bean sensibility. That's what I meant. Go ahead.
Yeah, it does. To be fair, I did not do this original illustration, but I did add the bean dome on top of it.
Okay.
Which is crazy enough is more or less what they're actually proposing.
Yeah. Just a little bit lower. But that was also a very nice Photoshop you did there. I would not even know how to add something there that looked that real and natural. All right, so a few hours before the start of the Chicago Bears game on Sunday, Lori Lightfoot stadium consultant released plans showing an amped-up and domed Soldier Field. The Bears ended up losing, falling to the Minnesota Vikings 29-13, but Chicagoans will come up even bigger losers in the long run if the Lightfoot administration, desperate to keep the 3-14 team from building itself a new stadium in Arlington Heights, decides to move forward with Landmark Development's fevered new plan to revamp Soldier Field. Having built a number of NFL stadiums, having built other sports venues, there is not an opportunity in the sports industry in the United States, I would argue, that matches the opportunity here, Landmark Development President Bob Dunn told Sun-Times reporter Dave Roeder. Unlike the Bears' offense last Sunday, okay, enough with the football analogies. Unlike the Bears' offense last Sunday, we'll pass. The Soldier Field plan manages to pack too much inside the Lakefront Stadium without addressing two big issues that are prompting the Bears' move. The Bears are planning a stadium complex in Arlington Heights that would be substantially larger than Soldier Field, that their taxpayers are going to cover. And the team can own and make money from whatever it builds there. And although Dunn's latest plan doesn't include a cost proposal released last year, carried an estimated $2 billion price tag. God damn it. A cost the taxpayers will almost certainly be asked wrongly to bear one way or another. Dunn envisions the new Soldier Field as a year-round facility that can host football, plus a variety of other events and entertainment experiences. Last year, Lightfoot said the stadium, once revamped, could host the NCAA's Final Four and the Super Bowl. But the dome plan only increases seating from 61,500 to the high 60s, according to Dunn. Current NFL rules require a Super Bowl host stadium to have a capacity of at least 70,000 seats, although the league will approve temporary seating that allows a venue to reach that number. Priorities. NFL seating for a Super Bowl are their priorities. Fuck them, man. Lightfoot's office released a statement after Dunn's plans made their rounds. The city still believes that Soldier Field is the best home for the Chicago Bears and continues to explore the future of the stadium, the statement said. Not a ringing endorsement, but not a farewell kiss either. Meanwhile, the Bears, who have a contract to buy the 326-acre former Arlington International Racecourse, again appeared uninterested in the plan. The only proposal we're exploring is in Arlington Heights, said Bears spokesperson Scott Hagel. You know what? Don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you, Scott. Get out and leave our name behind when you go to Arlington Heights. Make it the Arlington Heights Bears. Chicago, I think, is trademarked. It might be trademarked. I don't know that you can there's got to be a permission to using Chicago in their. Do you know? I'm not a big football.
I don't know what the legal ramifications would be there, but if the Bears move it to Arlington Heights, I mean, the city of Chicago should be able to sue to make sure they don't call themselves the Chicago Bears anymore.
Yeah. One would hope that the city's law department would focus on that instead of the other nonsense that they're engaging in elsewhere. All right.
So you can check. I mean, you can check the local news channels like ABC or WGN, and they've got the little fly-throughs. I showed a little bit of that on the show of the proposed dome and also the transit hub and entertainment complex that they want to build next door to that. It's like a gigantic construction project that'll probably take a decade to build, and billions of dollars from the state. So it's just, give us money so we can build this giant monstrosity that nobody wants.
Well, some people want, but the rich that can afford to pay for tickets there want.
You can't, I mean, all their brains gravitate toward is how do we get more tourism? And I'm like, tourism isn't going to be all of the types of, revenue that you're going to be able to get here. But you can't expect to get all of your money back on these gigantic investments for things that are just focused on one subject. Football, you're going to get football fans regardless. Gambling, if we're talking casinos, I mean, people want to do gambling tourism. They're going to Vegas. Right.
Or there's a casino out by the airport in Rosemont.
There's the Rosemont Casino, right?
Right by the airport where travelers are coming in and they can go get their gambling fix and they can leave.
Yeah, so you gotta think clearly the mayor of Rosemont's not too thrilled about the Chicago casinos coming.
No, he's not. But I have to say, if there was gonna be a compromise, I'd never thought of that because I'd never seen it proposed. McCormick Place. That would have been the place to put it. Not disrupting things by the old Tribune site.
Yeah, or, do your combo football stadium and casino. I mean, if you're going to throw everything all in one basket out that way, that would make a little more sense.
Yeah. Can you load Cam Buckner's comment? Because I don't know why my Twitter is still cycling. It's not loading his tweet. It's in the show notes. Because before I move on,
let me see
to the next fun story, I thought it'd be nice to see what Buckner had said.
Here we go. My statement on the newly proposed Soldier Field One Central plan. And let's click on that. Oh, let's zoom in on that just a little bit here. Why aren't we zooming in? What is going on here? Stand by. Here we go.
All right.
Okay. State Representative Cam Buckner of the 26th District, who represents Soldier Field in the Illinois General Assembly, issued the following statement today, which was actually 2 days ago. In the spring of 2019, Landmark used clout in Springfield to insert the One Central project into the annual budget implementation bill to the tune of $6.5 billion without the consent or counsel of local representatives. My colleagues and I voiced our displeasure and asked to be kept abreast of any further legislative movement on the project. In October 2021, a proposed amendment was included in a large piece of unrelated legislation that would give the ability to write landmark the $6.5 billion check to the Illinois Finance Authority, effectively removing the accountability measures and process that was written into the first piece of legislation. This was once again done without the consent or counsel of local representatives, and I took to social media and dubbed the move a, quote, Springfield surprise. It was subsequently taken out of the bill. Now, I'm stopping there right there, Jerry, because this is shenanigans.
In the highest.
Excuse me. I think we're having dueling microphones right now. And I don't know why there's a delay on the microphone where Jerry was doing the impersonation of me, but I'm just going to pause right now and see if maybe his mic is caught up so that he can continue this extremely awesome rant.
You just derailed my gag, Ed. Don't do that again.
There was so much silence, Jerry.
No, well, I was getting set up for it. Okay. I have disrupted this broadcast to read a special poem as provided in the live chat by Kathy Powers. Beanie, beanie in the park, we can't see you when it's dark. The criminal children that you make our futures seem quite stark. Lori has declared it.
That was pretty good.
Okay. All right. When I do a break in there, let me carry it. I know there was a break, but I've got a problem computer here. So
I have an aversion to dead air, Jerry.
I know, but that's why I put on the please stand by, and I was getting ready to, because it kind of disrupted the whole. Forget it.
All right, you're all cool with it out there, everybody, right? I mean, we have fun on this show from time to time. Just
who's in the captain's chair tonight?
Technically, I am, but I was letting Jerry run the show because
is that what was going on?
We had an important guest.
That's right.
Today, right. And I'm, Tuesdays are usually my day, Jerry.
Right, I know, but since I set up the guest.
I'm hands off again, Jerry.
Thank you. All right, so we did get some clarification in the live chat on NFL. Most NFL teams do play outside of cities, so I guess that there isn't a big deal there. Although I think there should be. I think if you're going to use a city's namesake, there should be permissions, and you should stay in the city. NBC Chicago wrote an article about NFL teams that play outside of their namesake city. Well, thank you for bringing up the Buckner article. It does speak to shenanigans. What can we say with all of this nonsense related to, the Soldier Field deal and the billions that they want to spend here while ignoring all of the other all the other things that should take priority?
Blowjob! Blowjob!
Blowjobs. There's one right there you're looking at. The human walking blowjob, Jim Gardner. And I can say that because I think this guy, I don't know how the hell the people in his ward elected this guy. He is a thug. He is a crook. He is corrupt. And, in this investigation related to how he decided to intimidate and threaten people in his ward because he didn't like their social media, their comments about his service as alderman on social media, ex-assistant to the embattled Alderman Jim Gardner testifies that he called critics rats. Alderman, thou doth protest too much. I think this is projection, because I think if I'm going to imagine what a rat looks like, it's right there. In an affidavit released over the weekend, a former aide to the embattled Chicago Alderman Jim Gardner said the city council became obsessed with criticism on his community's Facebook page, calling his critics rats and vowing to rid the community of them. Doesn't sound like this guy's got genocidal tendencies to speak that way. They're rats. I'm going to rid the community of them. He kept making comments to me like, I'm going to stamp out the rat station, and I'm not talking about the four-legged kind. Tanya King, who served as Gardner's chief of staff early in his tenure in September amid an ongoing legal battle over Gardner's Facebook practices, testified under oath. He had an agenda to go after certain people once he was in office. King, who left Gardner's office in 2019 after just 6 months in office, described the city council's allegedly long list of perceived enemies, including the commissioner of the Six Corners Association, the owner of a yoga studio in Portage Park, and an elderly community activist had criticized him in the past. She was older, had grayish hair, wore glasses, King said of the activist, according to a transcript filed in the U.S. District Court on Saturday. He really hated her. He was really after her. Kathy Powers, watch out. Don't piss off the wrong people, because you don't want to have somebody like this jag off chasing after you. In a statement of his own, and are we really going to believe this after that video we saw of him intimidating canvassers in his neighborhood? In a video of his own, Gardner denied having much to do with monitoring his Facebook page at all, saying he leaves it primarily to his enforcers, employees, including King, to ensure that no one posts harassing material, quote, that would demean or offend anyone, as we often do on Mayor Lori Lightfoot's Facebook page, or try to offend someone unnecessarily. And we don't post anything that demeans or offends. We're just trolling with facts when we see Mayor Lightfoot's, press conferences, that we are routinely, our comments are suppressed as being spam. What was the last time we went on? She had that you saw it. I posted something and you showed me later that they hid my comment as potentially offensive or disruptive or something. And it was like, no, I was actually,
Jerry, that on Facebook, any criticism is violence.
True. That's true. The goal of his community Facebook page was simply to have a dialogue without, feeling threatened, the councilman said in a September 20 statement taken via video from his mother's home. Gardner also said he believes King has unblocked certain individuals with the Chicago Board of Ethics, according to the record of the filing. The public filing of the statement was the latest controversy for Gardner, a Chicago firefighter who was seeking a second term in next month's city elections after a roller coaster ride of 4 years in office. The lawsuit, filed in 2021 by Peter Zosnika of the 45th Precinct and 5 others, alleged that Gardner violated First Amendment rights by voters who criticized him on social media by deleting their comments from his official Facebook page and blocked them from future releases, which is against the law.
Yeah, it's illegal.
It's illegal.
It's illegal for a public official to delete any social media content because that's public record.
Yep, or prevent you from commenting publicly, good or bad. If somebody makes a violent statement, if somebody makes a threatening statement, report it to law enforcement, and that's a legitimate statement that should and can be pulled down. But this is not what was going on there. Gardner's attorney has argued that even if the counselor deleted certain comments or Facebook posts from his ward's Facebook page, he would be immune from civil damages, quote, because he was acting in a discretionary government capacity at the time. Aren't they all?
Discretionary?
Aren't they all? In addition to that case, Gardner and his station chief and right-hand man, Charles Sakanich, are facing another federal lawsuit alleging they harassed, intimidated, and ultimately falsely arrested a man after he picked up a cell phone from Gardner's station chief that was accidentally left at a 7-Eleven. Sakanich, meanwhile, is due to go on trial in March on state weapons charges. Oh, we reported on this, that he tried to sell an illegal MP40 machine gun. Look at this guy, man.
Jerry, it's just, it's a historical heirloom, this MP40 machine gun,
Who's the rat in this story?
I mean,
all you need to do is put 2 ears on top, raise his ears, and you're looking at what I see run across my alley every time I pull into my garage at night.
It's like he's probably got tons of cash. He's probably got a decent life. Dude, just go away. Retire. Leave everybody else alone.
That's the ego Kathy was bringing up before amongst candidates. Is it to serve the ward, or is it to serve their own egos and their own agendas?
He wants to be the little big fish in his ward.
Meanwhile, Gardner is also under criminal investigation over his conduct in office, including whether he retaliated against voters for political reasons. I wonder if this guy knew Richard Nixon. Sources told the Tribune. Investigators are also investigating allegations of possible political corruption, sources said. No charges have been filed in this ongoing investigation. Ooh, I can't wait. I can't wait. I can't wait till those charges drop and we can report on it. I'm giddy. Gardner did not respond to messages left at his community office Monday. His attorney, Thomas Carroll, was not immediately available for comment. Because, that's going to be our Schadenfreude moment. Our Schadenfreude moment.
Well,
right?
when he gets indicted?
Oh, when the shit hits the wall and they announce the charges and we see him doing the perp walk, I hope. The Facebook lawsuit alleged that Gardner created a Facebook page specifically for his role as a public servant, thereby subjecting it to First Amendment protections. The plaintiffs allege that Gardner permanently banned them from commenting on the page and also retaliated in a variety of ways, including screenshots of their posts and directing supporters to attack or harass them online. In one instance, according to the lawsuit, Gardner posted a video on Facebook of him visiting Zosnika's North Menard Avenue block in October of 2020 with a long caption in which he thanked our friends who came out today to acknowledge our efforts long overlooked infrastructure issues on their road to improve. In the post, which Gardner ended with the hashtag besties, Zosnika could be seen in the background standing on his porch. In his testimony, Gardner repeatedly said he couldn't remember why he put the hashtag besties on the post or decided to shoot the video right outside Zosnika's house, despite being blocked from posting on the Facebook page of the comment on the. That's intimidation. That is getting a message and doxing. Yeah. Yep. That's we know where you live. We know where you live, and we're going to take video in front of your house and show you we know where you live. We often go into the community and tell the community what projects we're working on, and we often mention where we are. Gardner said, according to the transcript. Was it a sarcastic joke about how much bad blood there is between you and Mr. Oh, I'm sorry, wrong voice. Was it a sarcastic joke about how much bad blood there is between you and Mr. Zosnika? Asked the plaintiff's lawyer, Adele Nicholas. I have no bad blood with Pete Zosnika, Gardner replied. In her statement, King said that from the moment he took office, Gardner became obsessed with posts on the. Look, this is his own employees saying this. And what acts does she have to find? The evidence is there. He's doing it. And she's supporting it with her testimony. Why isn't this grounds for this guy to be kicked out? Why isn't this grounds for his dismissal from office? Why can a public official get away with this? Or, you know what? While there's a pending investigation, you need to, if you've got second command at the ward there, they got to run things. You got to, take a time out. Because you're not as long as you have to deal with this shit, you're not serving your constituents. And it's a circus. And it's not even a circus. It's an embarrassment. It's an embarrassment to the service that office he's supposed to be serving in the community there. So, King further said, he texted me at 6 a.m. Did you see that? She said. He called me at 9 o'clock at night. Did you see that? It was consistent in regard to things that were posted on the Facebook page. She also said that Gardner was well aware of the city's Ethics Council's guidance on how councilors should manage their community social media pages, but that she never tried to get him to adopt his own written policies because it was very difficult to work with him. He would look at this guy and listen to what she's saying, okay? He would threaten. He would constantly question allegiances, King testified, according to the transcript. And you always knew how far you could go with him, and often there were just fights that I didn't want to take on. This is like a crime story, man. Oh my God!
His own little fiefdom over there.
Yeah, he
wants to be Al Capone.
Well, clearly, soulless gaze.
But in all the bad ways,
right?
None of the good ones.
Did you
this guy? Has he ever opened a soup kitchen? I don't think so.
Do you remember when I was covering with Kit the mayoral forum over at the Copernicus Center, and I saw him right in front of me. I'm like, ooh. I just caught a whiff of sulfur. Jim Gardner's in the room. It's like the devil walked in. I saw him. I'm like, he just.
I know. I had to
checks the malevolence around himself.
I had to stop the video when we talked about it after the event because I'm like, is that Aldermanic? And yeah, he was right in the shot, right at the beginning.
Maybe he was taking video in front of us that I haven't found to send a message to us. He doesn't like our commentary.
I see you guys.
Yeah.
That's why I'm there at the front of your video.
U.S. District Judge Sharon Johnson Coleman is expected to rule on dueling motions for summary judgment in the case later this year. Coleman, in denying an earlier motion by Gardner's attorney to have the allegations dismissed, wrote that precedent clearly states when the government or a government official uses a social media account for official business, the interactive portions of the social media platforms, public forums for first change purposes. Gardner, whose northwest side borough includes portions of Old Irving Park, Jefferson Park, and Portage Park, is running a six-way race in the February 28th city election. Godspeed to the other 5 candidates running against him to get this guy out. Out! Get him out of there! Uh-oh. Who predicted 10:06 p.m. for the sex bots?
I did not, but I took care of it.
All right, I just blocked him too. What did we say? What? Oh, here we go. Yeah, he chased petitioners off a public sidewalk.
Something about was it something about a dildo? Or no, I don't know what it was.
You want to talk about mental health issues? Look, the guy. I'm not speaking out of turn here, saying that he clearly has sociopathic tendencies. That's not up for interpretation. These are sociopathic behaviors.
Does not play well with others.
Yeah.
Speaking of does not play well with others, this guy.
Yeah, he's a guy who doesn't play well with others. Yeah, Crop Girl, at least my husband and I helped Haddon get elected in the 49th. Good job. And now we can help him raise for the 50th, who was on the show.
I think that's K-pop girl.
K-pop. Well, how did I say?
Crop Girl?
I'm sorry, I misread. I don't have my reading.
That's a different girl. Crop Girl grows corn.
Okay. K-pop girl. Yeah, we had him ways on, and I've got his window sign in my window next to my sign for Jamal Green because I'm in the 50th ward. All right, let's get this guy off the screen because he's scaring the hell out of me.
Yeah,
and transition
bad vibes all around.
Oh yeah. Our last story to wrap up this election-heavy broadcast. All right, summing up, everybody, from WBEZ Chicago. From left to right of left, candidates vie to reshape the Chicago City Council. The political tilt of Chicago City Council hangs in the balance in February's election with more than a dozen retirements and departures. And we are going to have other Aldermanic candidates on the show soon. Mm-hmm. Kira's lining them up for us. Thank you, Kira, my dear. And hopefully we will have Jamal and other mayoral candidates on to respond to what they thought of my handing them the Chicago Corner Manifesto at the Copernicus Center. See if they did their homework. All right, this comes from Tessa Weinberg and Mariah Wolfell at WBEZ. On a recent Friday evening in December, Mwais Bawani, the sole challenger aiming to unseat 50th Ward incumbent Alderman Deborah Silverstein, knocked on doors to tell voters what he was about. Before Bawani could jump into his spiel, a woman at the door of a house on Lunt Avenue remarked she already knew who he was.
Maybe she saw the interview on Chicago Corner, Jerry.
One could only hope. Like and subscribe, support our Patreon. It's all down at the bottom there. So the lady who answered the door, quote, "It'll just be nice to have new blood," she told Bawani. Bawani, a Chicago public schools teacher who immigrated with his family from Pakistan in the West Ridge neighborhood when he was 3 years old, is on leave to campaign full-time against three-term incumbent Silverstein. With endorsements from the Chicago Teachers Union, United Working Families, and Chicago Democratic Socialists of America, Bawani is part of a wave of progressive candidates, authentic progressives, not faux progressives that we see in Congress with the squad. This is a real progressive, okay? Sadly, the word has been bastardized, and people are now spitting it out the way they spit out the word liberal, which used to stand for good things. We were talking. By the way, I had a really nice opportunity, not to go too off on a detour, but I got to join Kit and Fair and Balanced Sunday on an impromptu live stream with Jimmy Dore, where we were talking about how the Republicans leveraged force the vote to get what they wanted, where Democrats didn't, when they could have leveraged demands against Pelosi. But one of the things that we were remarking on is the fact that the current wave of Democrats in Congress that claim they're progressives, they're not. They've stolen it as a branding tool. So what do we use to describe ourselves now? And we were talking about maybe a populist party. We just call ourselves populists. People who are trying to bring everybody together. to support each other and not divide each other. Maybe I don't know anymore, but at least here in Chicago, I think we can still use the word progressive without it being misunderstood, because the progressives in Chicago really are for progressive policies that are in place or being proposed to support everybody. So, as the article said, progressives aren't the only ones who see an opportunity to influence the political tilt of Chicago's legislative body. It's not surprising to me one bit that socialists, pragmatic folks, Fraternal Order of Police, Chicago Teachers Union, or anyone else for that matter, is trying to make the most of a historic opportunity, said incumbent Alderman Raymond Lopez, Ed, one of the city council's most conservative members, who faces two challengers, including from a progressive candidate endorsed by UWF. Anyone with an interest would be foolish not to engage and try to make a friend or two or win a seat or six if they have the opportunity and means to do so. Thank you, Alderman Lopez. The battle between moderate liberals and progressives is a historic opportunity to usher in a re-envisioned independent city council, said Delmari Cobb, a veteran Democratic political strategist.
I didn't want to interrupt, Jerry, but I had a question.
Yeah.
Whoever wins, if Lopez is defeated, do they get the wheelbarrow?
I think if Lopez is defeated, that's how they're going to cart him out of City Hall.
Oh, okay.
Or his ward office. That's the means by which they should say bye-bye. Where was I? This has the potential to really change things and maybe get us back on the right course in terms of the city having a comeback, said Cobb, who describes herself as a progressive, because certainly we cannot continue to go in the direction that we're going in as a city and thrive when we've got communities throughout the city that are dying on the vine. In 2019, 5 self-identified Democratic Socialists made history with their election to the city council. They joined 35th Ward Alderman Carlos Ramirez Rosa, who was elected in 2015 as the first ever and then lone member of the Democratic Socialists of America in council.
I got drawn into his ward, which was weird.
How did your ward change? What did it go?
I was in Alderman Rosanna Rodriguez Sanchez's ward, but they cut out a small notch next to the 33rd and 35th ward, so I got redrawn into the 35th. Me and one of the former aldermen of the 33rd, Dick Mell, also got drawn out of his old ward, which I thought was kind of funny.
Interesting comment from a K-pop girl. Honestly, I'm not a fan of the term progressive. Historically, the progressive movement was racist and sexist. So were the Democrats during the Civil War. I mean, I do think parties change and evolve. The progressive movement, I look at the progressive movement today as kind of being, historically, I remember Teddy Roosevelt led the progressive movement because he saw the Republicans and Democrats, but not much difference between them back in, when was Roosevelt president? Was that in the late 1800s, early 1900s? It was, or was it
Teddy?
Teddy. No, that was in the 20s. No. There goes my history. Anyway, my point.
My memory doesn't go far back, Jerry.
Party labels do kind of evolve. So while, historically I don't know when the progressive movement was racist and sexist. I think the Democratic movement was certainly more racist, before the Dixiecrats jumped ship to the Republican Party, when the Democratic Party started embracing civil rights in the 1960s. When Kennedy and Johnson were in office, there's my modern history. At least I'm remembering that. But look, progressive means moving forward. What's the opposite of progressive? Regressive.
Yeah, I don't know Jerry.
Hold on.
I see. Go ahead.
I don't know why those who are against the progressive movement don't just label themselves as being regressive. They want to move backward. They don't want to move forward.
And also, progress is the opposite of Congress. Okay.
Kathy, thank you for the research. 1901 to 1909, Teddy the Rough Rider. So, the progressive era at the turn of the 20th century. But Roosevelt, as a progressive, breaking off and creating the Progressive Party back then, from my read of history, and I could be wrong, I thought a lot of what Teddy was doing was to serve people progressively moving forward, not kind of be restricted by the platforms of the Democratic and Republican Party at that time. And I'll go back and read. Actually, that was from Where Pilgrim. But both, okay, so Where Pilgrim and K-Pop Girl make good points. I will go review my history. I wasn't aware that the Progressive Party was at one point affiliated with racism and sexism, but I will go do some reading and see what you're talking about. So thanks for that tip. But getting back to the article, since when? They're mentioning Carlos Ramiro Rosa, who was elected in 2015 as the first ever and then lone member of the Democratic Socialists of America in council. Since then, one of the political organizations behind those candidates, United Working Family, says it's seen a number of successes in getting issues socialists care about passed. Is constitutional conservative in the chat? Because I'm waiting for like a barrage of hate comments or admonishments. Is he constitutional conservative? Okay, it's safe. For instance, the city started a program that sends mental health providers to respond to 911 calls, a cause championed by Socialist Caucus member Alderman Rosanna Rodriguez Sanchez, 33rd Ward. Though the program doesn't go as far as Rodriguez Sanchez and others envision. 2019 was a banner year in terms of gains that were made, said Emma Tai, executive director of the UWF. Even with a pretty small legislative minority, we were able to help really advance some monumental changes and some monumental shifts in public perception about what is the responsibility of city government. But the power of progressive aldermen has been limited. Even when the two separate but similarly minded progressives and socialist caucuses have voted together, they still only have 18 members, 8 short of what it takes to pass legislation on the council. We need the mayor's seat. We need committee chairs. We need 26. We need all of it because we're trying to pass legislation and we're trying to wield governing power, Tai said, referring to the fact that the council's committee chairmen are chosen by the mayor and control when legislation can come up for vote. Tai said her political organization anticipates spending $500,000 on up to 18 aldermanic races, in addition to the mayor's race where they're backing Cook County Commissioner Brandon Johnson. One of those aldermanic candidates is Victoria Vico Alvarez, who's running against the two-term incumbent Lopez in the 15th Ward. Alvarez stepped down as chief of staff to Alderman Rodriguez Sanchez to run. She's part of a cohort of progressive Latina candidates running in wards that neighbor hers on the southwest side. That includes Helu Gutierrez, a progressive candidate running in the open seat of the 14th Ward to replace long-serving Alderman Ed Burker King, who is under federal indictment and decided not to run again. I wonder why. Alvarez says this is a potential moment to change how her community is represented, bringing the concerns of progressives in her neighborhood front and center. All 3 of our wards have also been run by very conservative men, Alvarez said, men who often have been able to put on a good facade of being quote-unquote good aldermen, when in reality they provided our neighbors the bare minimum of what the ward office can do. Kudos to her, calling it out for what it is. Now, back in the 50th Ward, which is where I reside, Bawani is challenging Silverstein, who has represented the ward, there's ways, since 2011 when she defeated 38-year incumbent Bernie Stone and was herself part of a wave of 18 new faces to the council that year. While she sees similarities to that era, 12 years ago, we were fighting against a Chicago machine that seems to have been largely forgotten by this newest generation of potential aldermen, Silverstein said in a statement. The new generation is focused on... Wow, okay. The new generation is focused on grandiose policy decisions. Are they grandiose, or are they reforming? Are they
saying that? Silverstein? Oh, okay.
No, Silverstein is saying the new generation is focused on grandiose policy decisions when in reality most Chicagoans want their aldermen to focus on public safety and city services. Silverstein said. No.
That's the same thing, though.
Well, it adds to it. It basically, okay, public safety and city services are the foundation on which you build grandiose policy that is more equitable, provides proactive solutions, and provides more than what Alvarez said is normally served by men who often have only been able to put on a good facade of being quote unquote good aldermen, because in reality, they provide our neighbors the bare minimum of what a ward office can do. Mental health clinics. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. The grandiose policy decisions is Silverstein's way of saying ponies and unicorns. It's just rhetoric, because she's trying to make it seem like the things that these progressive challengers are asking for or wanting to do are unattainable. They're not unattainable.
If there's a will, there's a way. So yeah, she is definitely she's talking down. She's
she's punching down.
Yeah, she's pandering. Yeah, she's no, not pandering. That's not the right word. I can't think of the right word, but you know what I mean. She's
Gaslighting.
Gaslighting. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, the grandiose policy decisions. Silverstein, who has earned endorsements from labor unions like the Chicago Federation of Labor, said her experience is an asset. The two differ on how they would approach issues such as crime, with Silverstein pointing to more police as Bawani touts holistic approaches to address violence's root causes. Well, that's why I'm voting for Moyes. She's more of the definition of insanity. Do the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. It's not working. She wants more police, more money to police. No, you got to address violence's root causes, and that's what's not being done. And that's what reallocating police resources is supposed to do. Not defund the police, not promote anarchy, not say there aren't going to be police on the streets. But if clearly escalating more money to the police department is not reducing crime, you got to hit crime at its root. And look, we talked about this ad nauseum during the interview with Jim. Blew in the face practically over and over and over again. Bawani sees the high number of vacancies on the council as evidence that a tide is changing, that people in the city also want progressive policies. A cornerstone of his campaign for alderman is giving residents more say in how the ward is run. Now, look, what Bawani is promoting is what Silverstein probably promoted when she ran against Bernie Stone. It was okay then, but it ain't okay now, so long as her position in leadership is threatened, because all she wants to do is the same old, same old. Bawani's got fresh ideas, as Silverstein may have had when Stone was in office after 38 years. Time for a change. And experience does not always prove that it means anything when things haven't changed, that experience. We see this seat as a seat of service, Bawani said, and not a seat to wield power. A lesser-known, newly formed political group dubbed the Get Stuff Done PAC is trying to push the needle in what appears to be a more conservative direction. All right, let's give you time.
Yeah, get stuff done for who?
They call themselves the pragmatic. Yeah, this is identified in the article as the Pragmatic PAC. Let's go down here. There we go. The Pragmatic PAC. Formed to elect pragmatic candidates to the Chicago City Council, the group is led by former campaign advisor to, who do you think? Mayor Rahm Fuckface Emanuel, Michael Rumler, who did not return requests for an interview on the PAC's legislative priorities. Pragmatic PAC. Oh, interesting. More conservative direction, but wait, wasn't Rahm a Democrat? Interesting. No, he wasn't.
Hey, Jerry, what do you
midget? What
do you think our priorities are? We're gonna get stuff done.
Where, in Japan? In Japan?
Well,
I take responsibility for what happened because it happened on my watch.
Yeah, Japan, Chicago, wherever, we're going to get stuff done. It's right in the title of the PAC there, Jerry. Stuff that we're getting done.
Stuff that you're getting done. All right.
This is such a crock of shit.
All right. So last year, Michael Rumler, formed to elect pragmatic candidates to Chicago City Council. The group is led by former campaign advisor to Mayor Rahm Emanuel, Michael Rumler, who did not return requests for an interview on the PAC's legislative priorities. Because why would he? Why? They want to be pragmatic and push pragmatic candidates, but he doesn't want to talk about, as you said a moment ago, what are those? What's that pragmatism serve?
It's getting stuff done for who?
Oh,
it's not pragmatic to return requests for an interview, Jerry.
I think this next paragraph is talking about us. Late last year, he told the Chicago Sun-Times the PAC is meant to attract, quote, people who are interested in coming to the city council to be part of the solution and not lob bombs from the sidelines.
Who, us?
Guilty.
Lob bombs from the sidelines.
We're lobbing solution bombs, though, aren't we? They just don't like our solutions, so they dismiss us as just lobbing bombs to disrupt things.
Hey, man, we're just here talking. And if we happen to have good ideas and other people happen to agree with us, that's not lobbing bombs from the sideline.
Jim agreed with us on many points. Jamal Green agrees with us on many points. Brandon Johnson agrees with us on many points. We can't be wrong. And these aren't bombs we're lobbing.
Oh, man, I hope they're talking about us, though, Jerry.
Yeah.
Oh,
wishful thinking. We got 8 people watching the show right now, and we average maybe about, 70 to 80 views after the show's live?
Yeah, but, we don't know who those people are who are viewing us after the live stream.
I can only hope more people discover us. That's why we're covering this mayoral forum with the People's Response Network on Sunday. We're going to have eyes on our channel and hopefully add to our subscriber base, as well as rely on all the good people in the live chat that watch us to make sure to share that link, like and subscribe if you haven't already, and always share our show on your social media to fellow Chicagoans so they can hear alternative indie media voice talking about all this stuff that Channel 2 and Channel 5 and Channel 7 and WGN aren't going to talk about because it's too impolite to analyze things the way that we do. So the Get Stuff Done PAC, how charming. How Get Stuff Done PAC has raised a substantial $488,500 in 1 month since it officially formed. Donations in the tens of thousands have flowed from the Illinois Restaurant Association, Let Us Entertain You, and CEO of investment firms, including a $250,000 donation from Michael Sachs, CEO at Gross Venor Capital Management. Sachs declined to be interviewed for the story. What do you think that $250,000 donation buys him from the Get Stuff Done PAC? Get stuff done for CEOs at big corporations to privatize shit all across Chicago. That's what gets done at the Get Stuff Done PAC, the pragmatic PAC.
Yeah, and let me just say, restaurant industries, you disappoint me.
The PAC has not yet reported which candidates will benefit from that cash to the Illinois State Board of Elections, so it's unclear which incumbents or challengers they'll support in the election. But, oh my God, this ties in with everyone we've talked to, Ed. We talked to Jim earlier, right? Running in the 34th Ward. We've talked to Waze, who's running here in the 50th. The article goes on to say, in regards to the Get Stuff Done PAC, but 34th Ward candidate Bill Conway, a former prosecutor in the Cook County State's Attorney's Office and a Navy veteran, is hoping his candidacy could get a boost from the PAC. Conway, whom Sachs has also donated to, said he filled out a candidate questionnaire seeking the PAC's support, but hasn't yet heard back. This is the billionaire candidate that Jim is running against.
Well, son of a billionaire, so we honestly don't know how much money he has personally, but still.
In an interview, Conway emphasized he's applied for a wide range of support and that he's going to work collaboratively across the ideological spectrum if elected. It's my understanding that they're trying to elect candidates that are willing to get stuff done. Who's not willing to get well, I guess there are a lot of candidates, a lot of incumbents who are not willing to
get stuff done for who?
Right. And I don't know if they will back me or not, Conway said, adding his main priorities will be improving public safety, in part by addressing the root causes of violence and revitalizing the city's downtown business corridor, which we discussed with Jim. The 34th Ward was redrawn in 2021, moving boundaries from the far south side to a puzzle piece that looks like that medical frigate from Return of the Jedi, that encapsulates pieces of the Loop, Greektown, and near Fulton Market. The race for that ward became wide open after indicted Alderman Carrie Austin said she'd resign. Real estate agent and former healthcare worker Jim Ascot is also running. Watch the first hour of the show. Caucus power. In addition to the Democratic Socialist Caucus, 4 of the city council's other caucuses are aiming to grow their ranks. The Black Caucus, Latino Caucus, LGBTQ Caucus, and the Progressive Reform Caucus. That's a lot of caucuses. While no group holds the 26-member majority needed to push through legislation on its own, and caucuses do not always vote as a bloc, they form key allegiances that can share ideological goals. I think all those caucuses definitely share the same ideological goals. Some city council members also sit on more than one caucus. Currently, the largest with 20 members, the Black Caucus, is losing. What was confusing there?
No, you just kept saying caucuses.
Oh, all right.
And you said that's a lot of caucuses.
That's a lot of caucuses. There we go. Currently the largest with 20 members, the Black Caucus is losing long-tenured members to retirements, aldermen throwing their hat into the mayor's race, and in one case, a federal indictment. But 28th Ward Alderman Jason Irvin, the Black Caucus's chairman, anticipates the group will be able to maintain its ranks. In addition to continuing to address root causes of violence such as poverty, Irvin said he aims for the caucus to keep a united front. All right, on and on and on and on. You can read the rest of the article at WBEC because we just went in past 3 hours tonight.
Yeah, it's almost my bedtime.
And we didn't even get a chance to talk about the Michael Madigan indictment. We'll save it.
Is he getting indicted again?
I don't know. He should be, probably for something else. I don't know that we're going to be able to talk about that on Friday when we have the People's Response Network on. Can you bring that flyer up again? I don't have it queued.
Oh, the flyer. Yes, the flyer. What did I do with that flyer? Yes.
Yeah, the BEZ article pretty much well encapsulated everything we talked about tonight and everything we're going to probably be talking about till the end of February. And beyond that, if there's a runoff. And that is all going to be tied in with the Mayoral Forum being hosted by the People's Response Network this Sunday, January 15th, 2023. At the Quinn Chapel AIM Church, 2401 South Wabash Avenue. Be there in person or watch it here live on Chicago Corner. We will begin our coverage at 2:15 p.m. Sunday afternoon. Kit and I will be there. Ed, you'll be there. Ed's, the Trinity is going to be there to set up the gear and basically cover the. We're not going to be interviewing the candidates ourselves. They're going to answer. The People's Response Network is going to get all the answers we need from them in that form, and I don't want to it's not about us. I don't want to bother them afterwards. I mean, I don't think we bothered them at the Copernicus Center. That was meant to be a meet and greet to be able to talk to the candidates ahead of time. This is going to be a different type of presentation. So we just want to be there to introduce it, have the moderators conduct the forum, and then maybe just offer some thoughts on what we saw at the wrap-up afterwards. So Kit and I will be out there covering it. Ed will be helping us with camera operations. It'll be a great event. Buckner's confirmed. Green is confirmed. Johnson's confirmed. Sawyer is pending. Vallas is confirmed, but Jesus the Stash Garcia no response means they're not paying attention to the invitation. Okay, Sophia King is not responded. She's not paying attention. Willie Wilson, are these people just too busy to realize that they should come out and address this group's questions on what they're going to do for the people? And Lori Lightfoot's going to send a representative because she's got other obligations elsewhere with her. This Vasilatos jagoff over here is speculating I'm going to be fundraising. Time will tell.
Yeah, and when we find out where she's going to be, we'll probably report it right here on Chicago Corner.
No, sir. No, sir. No, sir. You will stop speaking. You will stop speaking. You're full of crap, and that's the nicest thing that I can say.
So kind.
That's my new favorite drop-in.
I want to know who she's sending as a representative, and is that representative going to be like sitting at the table answering questions for her?
How could a representative answer questions for her? How can the representative are they going to have like a notebook of how to it's like one of those choose your own fate manuals where it's like they ask you this question, you got to go, what's the mayor's response going to be on this, on that? It's ridiculous.
I mean, does she have somebody like a press secretary like the president does, where they basically just read out of a book of all of the policies and the approved answers?
I haven't paid attention to know, but I don't think that the moderators are going to ask her representative questions because the representative wasn't asked to show up; she was asked to show up, and I think that's the way they should handle it. I don't know what's going to happen, but
no, sir, no, sir, no, sir. You will stop speaking. You will stop speaking. You're full of crap, and that's the nicest thing that I can say.
Jerry, I will have you know that we have taken out of some mysterious TIF funds enough funding to develop a Lori Lightfoot AI robot
that will be representing me at this forum on Sunday. Now, if by any chance the robot is not ready for prime time, we may actually have to send a human, but I have every possible confidence that it will be showing up to.
Kathy
maybe that was the AI robot.
So Kathy, who is a member of the People's Response Network, is sharing in the chat. They will do what they did at the Copernicus Center, her representative. They will pass out flyers. She also says it will be mega. No Sawyer, Chewy, or Willie. Lori's sending a rep to not answer questions. Will she stop being mayor? Yeah. So anyway, it's going to be a great event, and we're very honored to be able to carry the live stream for people who can't attend in person. So make sure to tune in then. And we will have our representatives of the People's Response Network on this Friday night, 2 nights before the actual mayoral forum on Sunday. So there you have it. What a show. Jam-packed.
Yeah, this is I think it's the latest we've gone for a show so far.
There's a lot to cover. And I don't know that we lost time last week because a lot of these stories actually, aside from the mayoral forum update that Access Living provided last week, all this other stuff was breaking over the past couple of days. Yeah, and last week was a slower news week. I think it was the right time for us to take a break.
Yeah, so I mean, it was good to do a little extended show with a little bit of catch up here on just some of the stories that are happening in the city, and they keep rolling in, and we keep talking about it here on Chicago Corner.
Yep, that's our duty. That's our duty to the city of Gotham. I mean Chicago. All right, Ed. Let's check out here. Anything you want to share before we depart?
Nothing new to share, but if you'd like to make Chicago-style pizza at home, head to realdeepdish.com. I got a recipe there for original, authentic Chicago-style deep dish pizza, but if you like the tavern style or you want to learn about the other styles of Chicago pizza, I got information up there as well.
Kathy says we can't take any more vacations. Now, Kathy has a right to say that because she is one of our patrons on Patreon, her and Dominic, but there are only 2 patrons. And there's only so long that $10 a month can sustain us, everybody, between the 2 patrons who have dedicated themselves to supporting us. So, Kathy, pass the word amongst everyone else to please join our Patreon because we're hoping we're going to be able to go on beyond the election.
And the truth is, it wasn't really a vacation. We were still doing research and checking out the stories.
And you know what, Kathy? It was no vacation because how much time did I spend last week in Zoom calls with People's Response Network, doing the Tech Scout over at the church, doing the live stream with Kit and Jimmy Doran, Fair and Balanced on Sunday. I was 80% of the work I did last week that was supposed to be, I have my time to take care of my stuff, was Chicago Corner stuff, honestly. So there are no real vacations here, but we needed to break from doing the live streams because there was so much to catch up on. And I'm not complaining. I just want to make it very clear. We work very hard here in dedication to our audience and our viewers across the city of Chicago. So, give us a break. All right, Ed, as always, thanks for, actually, I know that this was your night to host, but since I knew Jim and I lined it up and stuff, I just figured it'd be easier for me to moderate and move things forward with the stories
we just roll with whatever's happening here. It's like, not every Tuesday can be a full-blown Taco Tuesday, Jerry. Sometimes we want to cover the events and talk to the people that we need to talk to, and it's cool. We hand each other the reins. We help each other out with the controls. We throw stories at each other behind the scenes. We do whatever it takes to make sure that you get an entertaining show here on Chicago Corner.
Absolutely. We hope everybody likes what we bring to you. Ed, I will talk with you soon. In the meantime, everybody out there, please make sure as you go through the week to be safe, watch out for each other, take care of yourselves, be vigilant. Tune in on Friday. Mark your calendars for the mayoral forum we're going to be covering on Sunday. And remember, if it's happening on the streets, you'll hear about it here on Chicago Corner. Have a safe week, everybody. Good night.
Get out. And don't come back until you've redeemed yourselves.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.